a Navy SEAL sniper paying a Green Beret sniper to teach your son long-range shooting?
I had a dude freaking pull his gun on me in the car I was driving. Reached across, drew my pistol upside down, and pulled the trigger with my pinky. I'm not compromised. I'm fine. Well, then, all of a sudden, the Marines are freaking roving patrols. The ultramarathoners are either running from something or to something. It's probably a little bit of both for me. He didn't talk about it on camera, but afterwards he's like, hey, I think you guys need to know you saved my life.
Good evening. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 37. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. Today, I'm really excited to have one of my buddies who is also one of my heroes. And I don't say this jokingly because he truly has lived an absolutely incredible life. A life I'm kind of envious of in regards to the combat that he has been a part of, the service to our nation that he has contributed to. He is one of the guys that I'm very proud our nation has been able to call upon. And he has answered that call time and time and time and time again as a Green Beret, as a CIA operator, and is still currently serving in the National Guard. I first met this guy in March of 2017 while teaching shooting, and I was the only Navy SEAL there, surrounded by a bunch of Green Berets. And again, this is March of 2017, and by this time I had worked with Green Berets overseas, and I had really good interactions with them. Those guys are studs. I mean, as a young boy, I was inspired by the movie Rambo, and it was either become a Navy SEAL or go be a Green Beret. And I remember being down at MEPS waiting to do all of my stuff for the Navy to become a Navy SEAL and looking at all the stuff about the Army Rangers and the Green Berets. And I've actually never shared this before. I remember I was at MEPS and I sat there thinking, I wonder if I could be a Green Beret. I wonder if I should go do that instead of becoming a Navy SEAL. And then there was times in the SEAL teams I'd heard about guys that had been in the SEAL teams and gone and become Green Berets. And I was like, man, that would be pretty epic. And so I had a lot of really good experiences with Green Berets. And I had also known that there was a good amount of Green Berets that didn't like SEALs because they had had some bad experiences with SEALs. And there are some SEALs that didn't like Green Berets because they had some bad experiences with Green Berets. And while those are valid on both sides, I also know that there's a lot of ego involved there. And I remember going to this course knowing I was the only Navy SEAL and every single one of these guys were Green Berets. And I knew to keep my mouth shut. Not in regards because I was afraid of them or scared of them or intimidated by them. But I wanted to build relationships with these guys. I didn't want to act like I knew everything because I don't. And I knew that. I knew that I was a good shot. I knew that I was a good instructor. At this time, I had been doing a good amount of it. But I knew to go in there and to be quiet and to shut up. And I'm glad that I did because I learned a lot. And these guys were awesome. They were super nice to me. Very encouraging, helpful. And this guy that I met, that's our guest tonight, stood out to me as one of the most professional and articulate instructors I had ever been around. His knowledge for weapons was unreal. The data that he had in regards to being a sniper and carbine shooting and pistol shooting was unreal, but didn't overcomplicate it. And then I kind of was just listening. I got to spend some time with these guys. It was awesome. I went back a few other times and it was just me and these guys again. And just hearing some of the stories and then doing a little research. And then you start following these guys on social media and you get to see little bits and pieces of their lives, and that I'm looking forward to us being able to share with our listeners tonight. Tony, what's going on, my friend?
What's up, brother?
How are you, man?
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, doing great.
Dude, so before we get started and we ask Lucas how he's doing, I just want to say that the last 2 days I have gotten to do an intro to long range shooting course with my son Aiden and I that Tony was teaching. I saw him post about it and I was like, done. We were supposed to actually be out of town this weekend. We had some other stuff that we thought we were going to do. Things shifted. That went away. And I told my wife, I'm like, hey, long range shooting course. My buddy Tony is doing it. I want to sign up Aiden. And Amanda was like, that's awesome. And I'm glad that we were able to do it. It brought back so many good memories from when I went through sniper school and then as an instructor and just it was awesome. And to see the progression of Aiden, just hitting 1,000 yards at the end of day one, just stoked. And then today off of, barricaded shooting positions and, tripods, hitting targets dead center at 500 yards, like unsupported. It was really cool. And so it was awesome 2 days, but I appreciate the time. And I wanted to share that with everybody because it's almost 11 p.m. and Tony is taking the time to come and record this before he gets on an early flight home tomorrow morning. So thank you very much, man.
Oh, man. Thank you for having me.
What's up, Lucas?
What's going on, man?
How are you?
I'm fantastic. As an NCC, it's an honor to be here with both of you guys. I'm a non-commissioned civilian and have been for several years. It's wonderful to be in the presence of two studs like yourselves, and just thank you guys for what y'all do.
NCC.
I always tell people the fast track to becoming a Green Beret or any special operations guy is failing out of college.
Yeah, done. I left, much to the chagrin of my parents. I got an opportunity I was a musician professionally for a long time. I got an opportunity halfway through my sophomore year to go on tour. I was like, I'm out. My dad was like, you can take online classes. And I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to do that.
That's awesome.
Like, I'm going to drop these and see what money we can get back. And
That's right.
Yep. Yeah. Apologize all the way to the bank while I'm headbanging. So, yeah, there you go.
That's amazing.
Shout out to all my NCCs out there, which is now like becoming a thing on our YouTube channel. It's cracking me up.
That's amazing. So for those that watch on YouTube, thank you. I appreciate all the interaction. Tony, dude, your childhood was great. You had a very hardworking father that taught you a lot. Your mom was an incredible woman. I mean, you have a lot of epic stories just from your whole life, and I love how you always, have remained faithful to God and, give God credit and glory. And, that's not common these days, unfortunately, like we were talking about at dinner.
Right.
We need more bold Christians, not just Christian men and women, right?
I think that pendulum's starting to swing a little bit, right? Like
it is.
Folks are starting to be, I think we're all getting fed up. We've been too tolerant of the modern American experiment, the liberal experiment that we've seen in the last 50, 60 years. Yeah. Guys like you and me kind of just, nice people, good people, right?
Yeah.
Good Christian American folks have kind of set back, like especially in the 90s and the 2000s. It was almost like you didn't want to talk about your religion. It was something you would keep private. Like we were being indoctrinated to not be faithful, and not speak about it, and I think that's starting to finally go away because guys like us are like, no. We're like, all right, hey, and I think with me, I like to say that there was never a time that I lost my faith. Right, there was times that I behaved, I was a little unfaithful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that I'm getting a little older, and obviously that type of misbehavior is behind me.
Yeah.
And as myself and Melissa grow closer and closer, it's been through God, and it's in the last few years. And now I'm not in any way, shape, or form embarrassed to talk about my faith.
Yeah.
In a public forum. Not that I was ever embarrassed. It just wasn't. I think anyone listening to this, they know what I'm talking about. It was just kind of, we just got to the point where it was like, you didn't, it was like we were trying to be nice to folks who were atheists, agnostic, whatever, the liberal experiment. Yeah. And then they just went too far. They started really attacking Christian entities, Christian organizations, our values, our principles, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, you've gone too far.
Yeah, I think I think the big one is when they start messing with our kids.
Oh yeah, they almost screwed up. They reined themselves in during COVID. Like that whole mess, they went too far and they knew it.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we're not slowly boiling the water anymore. Now I think we turned it up a little too quick, and then, which thankful that they did, because it woke up a lot of people. Like, oh wait, hold on, no, we're not doing this anymore.
Right. Bunch of mama bears came out of the mix. Freaking, they were like, oh no, we're not. You're not jabbing my kids, and you're not indoctrinating my kids. You're not putting, this whole DEI and the whole transgender movement in front of my, fourth grader.
Yeah. Crazy.
It is insane, man. Some of the stuff that I see, I'm like, how did we even get here? Because it happened so quickly. Like, 10 years ago, if you'd asked me when it would be that we were now where our nation is at, 10 years ago, I'd have said, another 20, 30 years. And then all of a sudden, it got put on fast forward. I mean, they went through 2 decades of progression in like 2 years or less.
Yeah.
It was wild.
And that I think that, like you said, they cranked it up too fast, and people were like, "Oh." And even still, man, the average American's asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
There was a thing today. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Miss Rachel. She's a YouTuber who does a bunch of stuff for like little kids. So my oldest is 21 months old, and so it's like geared towards his age stuff. And she just had on a transgender activist on her channel for those kids, and she's taken a ton of heat for it in a lot of the communities that were supporting her. But it's the same as Dylan Mulvaney. It's the same guy that did the Bud Light stuff, where Kid Rock was like, decided he's no longer going to be a part of any of their stuff because of that guy. That's the dude she had on.
I mean, you know what? Let's face it. I mean, the transgender thing is there's something wrong with those people, right?
Yeah.
There's something broken.
Yep.
And I don't say that in a mean way.
No,
right?
what you
It's
said
a
is
factual
accurate.
thing.
Broken.
Something's broken.
Yes.
No different than someone with schizophrenia, a serial killer. And I'm not saying transgenders are serial killers. I'm just saying, in a similar fashion, something is broken in their minds.
Yeah.
There's nothing natural, right? Well, it might be a naturally occurring phenomenon. Let's face it, that type of person cannot continue our race, our species, not a race, our species, right? They can't do it. They're not capable of it. So, even more so, at what point in our representative democracy did a fraction of 1% of the population gain so much power and influence? Right? Last time I checked, in a representative democracy, majority rules. Well, the majority has just been sitting on their hands for so long.
Well, because I think people are so afraid of not being liked, and everyone's more concerned about being liked and having friends, and
I don't need to be liked.
Maintaining the power that they have to like.
I mean,
it's all manipulation. It's all witchcraft.
Oh, absolutely. I value respect over being liked any day of the week, right? You don't have to like me, you know what I mean? But I'll give you reasons to respect me.
Yeah, that's huge.
But it's weird because, like, so much of the young men in America today, right? Like, there's that old tough guy saying, right? Like, might makes right, But these young guys, because we've demonized freaking, like, the whole anti-bullying stuff. Yeah. The anti-bullying campaigns in America did not eliminate the bully. It eliminated the kid that would step in and stop the bully from bullying. Right?
100%.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
With that zero tolerance, like violent stuff, we've had so many students. And when I was coaching junior high football, we had several of our guys who were put on suspension because they stood up for a kid that was being bullied, just because they stood in between, the kid that was punching them and the other, and they were like, "No, we have zero tolerance for violence." He's like, "I didn't hit him. I stood in the way because I've been hosed by this before. Right. I stood in the way. I got hit, and now I'm being suspended."
I mean, and let's face it, 5th graders can get in a fight. They call the police and they get arrested. Like, whoa, wait a minute, man. Like if your 12-year-old daughter's gotten a tussle, right, and pulled each other's hair and said mean things to each other, you handle it. You don't call the police. They're children. And like, what kind of police officer would put a fifth grader in handcuffs, these junior high kids, and create assault charges? Like, how did we get this far? You know, I mean, I know when I was in the fifth grade, you know, I mean, everybody knew everybody, right? Like, there's, you know, my graduating class in high school had like 104 people in it, right? So the whole county, there's one school in the whole county, right? So like, I remember one time I ran from the police on my little four-wheeler, you know? Like, I cut through the woods.
Like they didn't know where you were going.
Or who I was, you know what I mean? Like, the police officer was literally someone who knew my dad well. The sheriff at one point had actually worked with my dad previously, right? Like, like I knew this police officer by name because there was only 3 deputies in or something like that in the whole county. You know, there's one little local restaurant, so at breakfast, you know,
sounds like heaven to me.
You know what?
Great, yeah.
Growing up in a place like that, you know, you're like, I can't wait to get out of here. And everybody knows everybody's business and all that. So as a kid, especially like a high school kid trying to misbehave, you know, it's a small place and you get ratted out constantly. You know, but now I live in a very similar type of place, also in another part of rural North Carolina. And, you know, I realized at some point, and I was living in Wilmington, North Carolina, right? Like, Wilmington, North Carolina is not a big city. I mean, it's a college town with a beach problem, right? Like, you would think it would be the most friendly place and everybody would be happy because, you know, it's a beautiful beach. And
it's gorgeous there.
Why would
Gorgeous.
Why would people be grumpy? Well, because the city makes people grumpy. We are not... I really feel like we have not evolved and or adapted to all the technological advances we have, right? A good example would be like, we were never supposed to hop in a metal can and go really fast and exceed, you know, the speeds in which we could run, right? So when we crash, we get damaged, right? We're not adapted to doing the things that we're doing. No difference in... We're not really adapted to being around artificial light and eating the artificial foods. And, you know, so technology and science has exceeded the rate in which we've been able to adapt to all these things. So, you know, at one term, you know, when you're, you know, allostatic load, right? How much stress your body can take at one time, right? Body and mind. And when I left Wilmington, within a month of being in the middle of nowhere where I could see the stars again, I could hear the frogs freaking, you know, making racket at night, the coyotes howling, I started to like relax. I don't get frustrated. I don't have road rage. I can be behind a combine or a tractor doing, you know, 12 mile an hour for 15 minutes and I'm cool with that. I'm not in a hurry. But you make me sit at 3 traffic lights, I start getting grumpy. You know,
so you were able to see our house that, you know, you came by before we went to dinner, and that was one of the big things for me was, I mean, obviously I don't live on property like you or out in the middle of nowhere. Like, one day that's my goal is literally like what you're describing. I'm like, life goal of mine.
You've got young kids that, you know, need different. Good education and some support from city, right? You know,
yeah, maybe some of those things.
Right.
We're big on the homeschool thing.
Yeah,
which
don't blame you.
But to your point, at night, it would be cool. Like if we could have gone, like just stayed there. That's what I should have done. Is just grilled you out at our house. But at night, and Lucas has been there at night. It's amazing. Yeah. There's no ambient light. There's no street lights. It's dark. That road is dark.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm out there, when I come home from a trip, I literally sit outside my house for about 5 minutes before I go in, and I'm like, thank you, God. Like, noticeable difference in the last year that we've been at that house because, you know, backing up to all the acreage I was telling you about, it is a game changer.
Dude, city people are angry, right? Because there's so much stress and stimuli there that we're just not really cut out for. We haven't figured it out yet.
Do you think it's because there is so much stress and stimuli that you're just talking about, like subconsciously, like whenever people are in those environments and just all the sensory overload, they're like in the like I'm in fight mode, right?
I think
fight
so.
or flight, and they can't fly.
Right.
They can't get away from it. So
they can't fight either.
Yeah.
So pent up anger. You know, we see it now. So many people get so mad over silly stuff, right? There's literally entire pages on social media, dedicated to like, what do they call them now? Karens. They used to be the basic B word.
Yeah.
And now it's a Karen, right? Just losing their minds on people over the dumbest stuff, road rage incidents all over the place. And, of course, we always joke like a lot of this stuff's happening because people don't get punched in the face anymore. And I think that's probably a true part of the truth,
I think
too.
that there's something to
like,
that.
like I said, man, like you and I on the street, we pass each other, right? We recognize the shoulders, the walk, the confidence, and we automatically are going to give each other respect.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays people aren't raised with that type of respect, right? There's esteem respect. Like the respect you give a doctor or, somebody that wins the Nobel Prize, somebody that's awesome, right? That did something awesome for society. That's esteem. There's mandated respect, right? Like for a badge or a colonel or commander's rank, right? Like you got to respect that guy because he's got mandated rank. And I always say there's like a third type of respect. And we mentioned earlier when we were talking about that one fella, it's like the type of respect you give another man when you're not quite sure you can whoop his ass. Right? There's that type of respect, right? It's natural. It's a naturally occurring type of respect.
Yeah.
And that has almost been taught out of people. And I'm not a proponent of violence per se, right? I know that violence can solve problems, right? I'm aware of that.
You might have lived that.
Or the threat of violence can solve, right? That's that respect. Me and you pass each other on the street and we're like, what's up, bro? Good morning. Howdy. And where I live, man, I just had this young man visiting. He is he's getting his master's in scientific journalism at M.I.T. Very intelligent young man.
Idiot.
Right? Yeah, how do you get in that school? I met
Can't even spell MIT.
He is documenting the progression of plant medicine, right?
Oh.
And so I actually met him at MBO Life down in Tijuana when I was doing Ibogaine. He documented the whole thing. He sat up, wrote notes and stuff. Very intelligent young man. But he grew up in New York. So the whole rural life, hunting, guns, not a thing to him. But he was very curious. It would be very easy to think or to stereotype or profile him that, a kid that grew up in that world. No, he's curious. He got to shoot an AK, an AR. We took him to the range. Freaking my buddy Dustin's ranger helps me teach and stuff. Dustin took him out. He got to shoot. So then we... my partner in the nonprofit we started is a force recon dude, and he's a hunting guide. Hogs, wild boar, coyotes, bear, deer, all that stuff, right? Well, obviously, bear and deer aren't in season right now. We're like, well, hey, man, if you ever want to go hog hunting or coyote hunting, come to Carolina. We can go anytime. So he took me up on it. And we were talking about a lot of that stuff. So he's 28 years old, I think, 27, 28 years old. And his perspective is amazing. And he's intelligent enough to be, and he's super analytical. So he's not your stereotypical, young, oblivious, ignorant, city kid.
Yeah.
Just curious about all the stuff that we do and living in the country. And he spent 3 days, 2 nights at my place. And he was just like, this place is amazing. This place is amazing. He's like, being able to hear coyotes and hear, the frogs freaking raising Cain in the middle of the night at the ponds. And I mean, it's almost deafening how loud they are right now. It's that time of year, And, well, anyway, just talking with him and stuff and listening to his perspective and then him coming into our world, it's a lot of the stuff we were talking about is the development of young people in America today and where they're at. But yeah, it was just kind of amazing, right? It's not like I hang out with a lot of people who go to MIT and associate with folks at Harvard. You know what I mean?
That's
But that's what we were talking about. And he was talking about how angry all of his friends are and how unfriendly and disrespectful they are to each other.
It's really sad when you think about that.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not like, hey, man, all right, these disrespectful little kids need a spanking. Some of them do. And I'm not advocating that, like, the fix is somehow violence. But, like, we've gone too far.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? That pendulum kind of needs to come back to the middle.
Yes,
right?
yeah,
It's
I
just
agree.
being pegged over to the left side.
Yeah. What's the name of the nonprofit you started?
It's called The Reason Outdoors.
Okay, like your hat. Okay,
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
it, yeah.
yeah.
The Reason Outdoors. I
So
like that.
our mission is not just to take guys on hunting and fishing trips, but to teach them how.
Ooh.
So like the other night, we had 2 Marines, a recently retired scout sniper. He got put out of a job because he was a scout sniper instructor. So, the Marine Corps got rid of their scout sniper school.
Yeah, I had some buddies affected by that. What? Like
That's the Marine Corps snipers. That's like such a thing. What a legacy, and they shut it down.
Pendulum swing. Like, at what point did we get to the point where we think that needs to happen?
And you know what? On the modern battlefield, we could definitely question whether or not the tactical sniper mission is valuable or viable anymore.
But we don't know what the future holds.
Right. So we don't want to lose those skills.
Why would we ever want to lose those skills?
Right.
That's
It's kind of spooky. And the reality is, right, the sniper is also a reconnaissance surveillance asset.
Yes.
His bolt gun is rarely his primary. It's, hey, you up there, this is me down here. Give me some fires.
Yeah.
But it's interesting what's going on in the Marine Corps, and it'll probably come back, right? That was just the commandant, trying to make a big change and probably get a cool. I don't know. I don't think the commandant cares about his OER. He's literally the highest ranked dude.
Yeah.
But he probably cares about getting a cool job at like Raytheon or Boeing. Anyway,
Are we opening that door already, or?
Right, yeah, military industrial complex.
This is my favorite podcast ever.
All right, which is kind of funny because, like we were
Such
saying
an
earlier,
Eisenhower fan. I'm all in, man.
It's funny because I'm so disconnected from the outside world. I had no idea the former president had a court case going on, much less was found guilty the other day. I found out the next day on social media, and I was like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, that's a horrible precedent." And I'm like, actually, I'm so stoked that I didn't know. I was elated, right? Like, woo, I'm getting better. But yeah, the point with the Marines, man, we took those guys hunting, and so they all took a hog. Won a big, nice boar. It's a Marsoc dude that I've known for years that I just hadn't seen lately. Great guy. He's one of the most senior 18 Deltas in Marsoc. Super stud.
Are
Awesome
they
dude.
still in?
He's still in.
Okay,
yeah.
so we can't say their names.
Right, yeah, super stud, man. Great guy, man. And just an awesome guy. And so I was happy to be able to take him on his first hog hunt. And yeah, man, he smoked a nice 250, 300 pounder. And so it was cool to be there, part of that. And then the other guys, they shot, the smaller ones, the eaters. The piglets always are way more delicious. The big boars are a little tough. But so we hung them up. Most of the time I'll just field dress an animal right on the ground. But when we're teaching, we hang them up and so I'll like butcher one side. Like I'll, skin down one side, take out the back strap, take off the 1/4, then I let the hunter do the other one. So I do one side, then they do the other, and we walk them through it. So we're teaching them the butcher. We teach them the process, all that.
Dude.
Super cool.
Man, I'll tell you, the coolest thing happened on our very first hunt. Last year, 2 Decembers ago, so December 22. Actually, it was November 22. I put on social media, I was like, hey, I'm going to go elk hunting in Idaho. I'm going to go. If you're a veteran and you would like to join me, you need to DM me and tell me you want to go. First 4 dudes. Freaking, you're going to have to pay your own way. But I will take you. I will give you a packing list. I'm going to give you a workout program. Freaking, you can come to my long range classes for no cost. Right? So immediately I got 4 dudes. Boom, right back. Right?
I just want to know how I missed this post.
NCCs need not apply.
So this young man, and I don't think he minds me saying his name. Young man named Angelo. Angelo. He's a mess. I've learned to love the guy, right? I can't help it. Not that I learned. It wasn't a struggle. It's just like, come here, man.
Yeah.
So grew up in Long Island. Street smart. Probably a little bit of a criminal before he joined the Marine Corps. Street smart guy.
Shocking.
Right?
That wasn't directed towards the Marine Corps,
right.
but I'm saying.
Angelo, right? You can probably trace, with his name, figure out his family lineage, right? Anyway, so he hits me up, and I'm like, all right, man, yeah, you're one of the first to answer, man. Freaking, all right, we'll get it together. Well, anyway, like I said, as that progressed, we had these other guys. We were giving them the long range classes. We were giving them hunting class. We were giving them packing lists, everything, right? We were getting on Zoom calls and just talking through what the hunt was going to be like. And I have to be very straightforward with people these days because I've taken people on hunting trips and like they were like, "Oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to," and like they quit. It happened. It was not an awesome experience. I'm the one, let's see what's on the next ridge guy, and next thing you know, we're 12 miles from the truck. Well, I don't know if you've ever had to pack an elk out. One time I shot an elk almost 9 miles from the truck, and I was by myself. It took me 4 days to pack him out. And it was after that I found out there are actually services you can call, and they'll bring their horses and go get elk for you. I was like, huh. I probably would have done that after day 2, you know?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, because part of the experience is packing out, right? Like, 150 pounds of meat in my backpack or whatever, you know? And anyway, I found out there was actually services that'll go retrieve your animal with just a pin on the GPS. And I was like, after 2 days, man, on that one, I probably would have paid.
That's
but
why
anyway.
my grandfather used to go hunting on horseback. Now I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a backpack hunter, man. And so I'll go out for, 2, 3, 4, 5 days sometimes living out of my backpack. So that means not a lot of food. It's like a patrol. There's a reason I like that type of hunting because it does provide some of the old recce type, sniper recce mission. Only no IDs, and I've yet to have an elk freaking shoot at me.
Seems like a better flip.
And
So-
you can eat them.
Yeah. So you're going light with your packing because
As
you're moving.
light as possible.
I think Jocko has said this on his podcast. There's a saying in the teams. I'm sure you guys had it as Green Berets. Travel light, shiver at night.
Yep.
You know, because you're like, hey, I'm going light, but
Freeze at night.
yeah, or freeze at night. Yeah. So,
I'm not into that anymore. I'll carry a few extra pounds. I have if the weather forecast is going to be in the 40s, I'm carrying a 0-degree sleeping bag. Right, I'm carrying an extra 2 pounds. My sleep mattress is like Gucci, dude. No more of that close down rolled up foam mess. I'm like, oh, I got an insulated sleeping pad. You know what? So yes, I'll carry an extra 5 pounds to get a good night's sleep.
do you get some of your best sleep out there though?
The best, the absolute best.
Yeah.
And you go to bed right after dark. Sun goes down. You ain't got nothing to do. There's no service, right? You can't start a fire in the backcountry, right? Freaking you can't do that because that would scare away the animals as well. A fire in the backcountry invites us to start talking, right? So no, man, it's like, shh, we're on top of this ridge, man. We got to be quiet. Tomorrow morning, like if there's elk right down there, right? We don't want to spook them. We want the sun to come up and then still be right there. So it's a lot like patrolling, man.
I wouldn't have even.
Yeah, you got to be careful and be quiet. I assume that with every few feet, I'm literally about to jump an elk, right? Like they got to, you have to assume that. So you have to walk quietly. So it's a lot like a tactical movement. But yeah, with Angelo, man, and the other guys that came along, he came early in the year. I think it was February. Shot a long range class at my place, and then came out for the first class we did up at the range we built up in Montana on Thorson Ranch. Beautiful place. Met Raymond Russell, owner of Thorson Ranch, Cattle Ranch. He's allowed me to hunt on his property, and since we became very good friends. Like, man, think the world of this guy. And that's why I always say, like, social media. I don't look at social media as my social media as a negative thing, because I have met some amazing people via social media. Raymond is one of them, and I now have a 2-mile range on his property we have that, and then an unknown distance range where you just walk through the mountains and we've got targets scattered all over the place. Find them and shoot them. It's a beautiful place, but he's let me hunt on his property. So Angelo came and shot a course there.
So for our listeners, sorry, when you said 2-mile range, that's your ability to shoot a long range rifle out to 2 miles. Yeah, I just wanted people to understand, like, 2-mile range. That's unreal.
3,220 some meters. Right?
Crazy.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool, man. Freaking his property, like I said, man, I could go on about his property, but the Smith River goes through his ranch. Smith River's, I guess, some of the best trout fishing in the world. Just a beautiful place, man. Like, we were building the range, I look over and there's 2 black bears just hanging out, messing about. Freaking, my buddy Dustin is a photographer for his, like, real job, very talented photographer. Of course, he's a ranger, and he's built as big as most black bear, and he's like, he goes running off. He's like with his camera, to go get closer to this bear. Bald eagles, freaking antelope, elk, mule deer, whitetail. It's just a beautiful place, and because Raymond herds cattle, works really hard.
Yeah.
He's not really a hunter. He's like, yeah, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
If he's riding around in his truck and he sees an elk because he's got tags because he's a landowner, he might put one on the ground. But he's like, most of the time, if I see them, I drive right by them because I'm en route to go do, rancher stuff. I don't have time to butcher an elk. So he let us hunt there, but I know, right? So Angelo, he comes out, we do the hunt. A city boy in the Marine Corps. He was not a combat MOS. He was a logistics type guy, like tactical level supply, like resupplies and stuff like that. So he was flying around the Middle East, in Syria, Iraq, with loads of stuff for teams and units, And so anyway, Angelo, I guess he was in a pretty bad spot when he saw that message. Wow. And so when we were, after the Idaho hunt, they were videotaping. The guy's like, hey, what'd you think of the hunt, type of thing. And he didn't talk about it on camera, but afterwards he's like, hey, I think you guys need to know you saved my life. And we were like, wait, what? He was en route, on his way to suicide. Our very first hunt. So as we were planning this hunt, I looked at my buddy Ryan Kuperis, and he and I had talked about, and we even came up with the name like 7 years ago, the reason, right? The reason we hunt. We want to share the reason we hunt with our brothers. Wow. Because what's the number one reason, like the root cause of suicide? Lack of purpose, lack of hope, lack of seeing a future. And let's face it, man, we all know that hunter who, once hunting season comes, man, freaking all else goes to the wind, right? That is his purpose. Real. I'm not quite that bad, but I'm darn close. As soon as hunting season's over, I'm planning next year's hunts, right? Wow. So it gives me something to do, think about, something to train for. I'm on the stair mill because in Eastern North Carolina, I don't have mountains to train on. I don't have hills. So I hit the stair mill year round to get ready for next year's hunting trip. Well, long story short, man, that's what Angelo shared with us. He's like, yeah, I was going to commit suicide, and I saw your text and was like, that seems interesting. And all of a sudden he has a reason to live, right? Wow. The reason outdoors. Like, holy crap, man. We were that kind of successful for our very first hunt. Well, in the late part of the summer, before the season came up, I was like, man, we might as well just go ahead and make this official. Unbeknownst to me, 7 years ago, when we tried to, or initially talked through standing up a nonprofit, the packet for the IRS was like pages. Well, the new application, there's a new, very streamlined application. Mm-hmm. It's probably the only thing the IRS has ever streamlined ever, right? It was like a couple pieces of paper, and I did it through like not LegalZoom, but one of those other online legal services, and I was like, okay, cool, man. It's going to be 6 months to a year before they approve us. Man, a few weeks later, I get a letter in the mail from the IRS, and I'm usually like, just throw that away. Because, it's not like the IRS ever, calls and says, hey, how you doing? How are you?
Hey, we have extra money for you.
No, it's never that. They're always like, hey, give us money, So when I first looked at it, I was like almost about to throw it away. I went, oh, wait a minute, that's for the reason. And I figured it was just like a letter saying that they got our application approved. It was like 5.5 weeks, man. Approved. We got our nonprofit. Poof. So now we're jumping out of our around our own tails, trying to get it stood up, get the bank accounts, get everything, and even raise a little bit of money for that upcoming hunt, because we had 3 of us bros, that were now all part of the reason. Myself, my buddy Ryan, who I mentioned, and then Drew. He's actually an active duty Coast Guard guy. He brings a whole different perspective to the table. It's very awesome. So we're like, all right, let's stand this thing up. We got to find board members. Like, what are we don't. How do you do a nonprofit? Like, we're a nonprofit. Well, how do you do a nonprofit? Well, we don't know. Yeah. So yeah, man, freaking, we got it started up and all that stuff, man. And
Wow.
at the end of it, come to find out, like our very first mission, our very first hunt, we can say we saved a life.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're on the right track.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
pretty amazing stuff.
I'm looking forward to watching how God blesses that, man. That's huge.
We're only a few months old, man.
How can people help?
Yeah, I mean, if they want to check it out, it's thereasonoutdoors.org.
Okay.
Of course, we're on all the socials under the same thing. And you can donate, man. We're not, none of us on the team are like something for nothing type people, like just click the donate button. We're constantly having raffles. We've raffled off some pretty cool stuff like badass ARs and pistols, and like, so we're not a something for nothing type, right? When I ran for Congress,
Yeah.
I despise the fundraising piece, asking people for their hard-earned money. It was horrible. And because I'm asking, like, hey, man, give me your money so I can, like, tell people I want to be a congressperson, which I didn't want to be one in the first place. That type of fundraising was gross. It's a lot easier for this nonprofit because it's such a righteous, good mission.
Yeah.
So it's not as difficult. I struggled with the whole fundraising thing for Congress. I just hated it. For this, even still, we're not a something for nothing, right? We're trying to offer people stuff. And do little campaigns, and hey, if you buy a hat or a shirt, right, all the proceeds are going, that type of stuff. It's pretty amazing, man. We're well aware that there are a lot of veterans charities out there that have abused their position.
Yeah. But there's a lot of really good ones.
A lot of really good ones.
Like Mark Lee's mom, Mama Lee, America's Mighty Warriors. Like, I mean, when COVID hit, she got me, because she'd been trying to get me to get hyperbaric oxygen treatment for a long time, and I could never commit to the time commitment.
Yeah.
COVID hit, and I was like, we all thought this. I was like, hey, I might have 2 weeks, and she goes, cool, let's start. And I was able to actually do 4 weeks, Monday through Friday, 90-minute sessions.
Nice.
And it was a game changer. Like, I was having some major kidney and adrenal gland failure issues, and my body was just shutting down, and that treatment literally saved me.
Wow, that's really good.
And so, like, there are good ones, but unfortunately, because there have been a lot of veteran foundations that just took advantage of people. So if someone goes to thereasonoutdoors.org, they can buy a shirt, they can buy a hat, they can just straight up donate. That's cool. And then if somebody has something that they want to donate for you guys to auction off, then that would help as well.
For sure.
Okay.
Man, we're getting ready to start an auction. A fella donated a 5-ton, like, military truck. For, like,
So let's
I'm
just
like, what are we doing with this
say,
5-ton truck, right?
hypothetically,
I'm gonna bid.
for it to not go to bid, what would the check have to be?
Oh. You know what? I hadn't thought about that.
Okay. Hypothetical.
I mean, I'd have to ask the guys, like, what would we like to get out of this truck?
Because there has to be a minimum that you guys set. There has to be.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, I'm not leading up that fundraiser, so I'm not sure exactly where that's at. My buddy Ryan and Drew are kind of running that one.
Okay.
Like the last raffle, I got a Type A AR, which is a kind of a bougie AR, really nice guns. And Arkin Optics, Navy so-owned guys, freaking that company. They gave us the optic. And Silencer Coke gave up a suppressor.
Wow.
And all said and done, like almost a $5,000 package, and we raised like $15,000 off of it.
Wow,
awesome. So huge thanks to those companies, and then obviously the people who bought the tickets. But yeah, we're trying to be super transparent, and like, of course I've had companies go like, they straight up asked us, and which I like people who are straightforward. They're like, is this really just a front for you guys to go hunting? And we're like, oh, absolutely not. We have very strict rules what the organization can pay for us. Like, it will not pay for our tags, right? Like, I'm never going to use the money out of that account to pay for my hunting, right? That's not what it's for. Is it going to pay for my plane ticket if I'm taking, guides hunting? Yes.
It should.
Right.
Like, I mean, yeah.
But we're going to go be the guides, right? Like,
right.
If a guided elk hunt in Montana, you're talking $10,000 to $15,000, freaking, that's an expensive hunt, man. Private land hunts, For elk in Montana, I mean, that's it. That's like I said, and in some places it's double that,
more,
it's according to exactly what size elk they got, so yeah, it's so far been an amazing experience, man. Freaking, we've got a bunch of captains, freaking fishing boat captains out of Wilmington who are taking guys out to the Gulf Stream. They're hooking, big mai wahoo.
Bro, that is
freaking-
on my list of things to do one
Right.
day. That's incredible.
Bro, you come to North Carolina, we'll take you fishing tomorrow. I mean, one of the guys on our board has a boat. We'll go to the Gulf Stream.
Typing
Freaking.
into GPS.
Yeah, brother. I
Dude,
mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, bring the family, the girls. Riceville Beach. I mean, you've been there.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful beach.
gorgeous.
Right. So yeah, I mean, open invite, man. You can say, hey, man, I'm coming. I want to go fishing or whatever.
Yeah.
That invite's open.
That's
Both
awesome.
of you.
So,
Sweet.
I was like, I was like, getting ready to say something. I was like, wait, I want to see.
Yeah, I will definitely take you up on that. I got some folks out there that I need to see anyway. Dave Baker, the historic weapons recreation specialist guy, is up there in Virginia. He wants to do some blacksmithing stuff with us. And then Kyle Yoakum from Yoakum's Rod Shop. We need to go check out all that stuff, which is
That'd
not
be
too far
awesome.
away from where y'all are at.
He's a big, he's a big sponsor of our Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast that we have. So the guy,
Yeah, world class metal fabricator. Like they bring him in to do clinics all over the country. The dude's awesome.
Dude, man,
he's
some
helping
of
us with a
those
couple of our
guys-
classics right now that we got going.
I'll see. I'll try to get you guys connected on social media. Very, very like-minded, cut from the same cloth. Like,
Right.
yes.
I'll tell you, man, like with the advent of all these awesome, machines, the CNC machines and stuff, you had this artisan who now has all this awesome technology. The things guys are building in their, gunsmithing shops or their machine shops, like it's amazing. And also with the 3D printers, like dudes are building amazing things.
Yeah. So do you think part of, obviously we'll talk about your time as a Green Beret. So from your childhood, do you think just the way you were raised, and I know we were talking tonight at dinner, and it was really cool. Thank you for pouring into my family like that.
Oh, they're awesome, man.
Yeah,
I had a great
they
time
are.
with your boy Aiden, man. Really good, man. What a good weekend, dude.
It was awesome. Yeah. But just like even at dinner, you pouring into my family, just sharing lessons and stories. I was just like, can we just stay here? Lucas, bring cameras. Like I think Marty B's might kick us out. But you said some stuff about like catching deer and fish. Do you think like from that aspect from your childhood and the way your dad taught you to like not waste animals? You shot some squirrels one time. Do you think that helped just kind of form who you are as a man in regards to your respect for nature and animals?
Absolutely.
And then having this organization, The Reason?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's obviously all interconnected. You're talking about, you mentioned the squirrels. Yeah, man, I was like 9 years old. My dad bought me this badass pellet rifle. And sure enough, man, I hit the woods, came back with 9 squirrels, headshots, man. I was so proud. Like, I was thinking, man, you don't waste meat. You don't waste meat. Well, it wasn't in season. I didn't even know there was a squirrel season. I was, like I said, I was a baby. I was a kid. And my dad was like, and it was funny because later in life, he told the story that, like, on one hand, like, he's got to do something. There's got to be some punishment. But on the other hand, he was, like, so proud of me that I had shot,
Headshot
so
9
well.
squirrels. That's
right,
incredible.
You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of proud, but at the same time, he can't, do that. He's got to be like, all right, there's got to be some type of punitive, some punishment, right? And so, yeah, I ate squirrel for like 3 days, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I haven't eaten a squirrel since.
You even had the opportunity to SERE school, right?
I found a dead squirrel on the side of the road. I was doing the whole run out, check the road for freaking roadkill. And so for your listeners that don't know, SERE school, right? Like if you can find roadkill, like that, that's a catch. Well, I found a squirrel. Took it back to my team and freaking they cooked it up and I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm like,
It's been
starving.
5 days without food. I'm still good.
Yeah, they're like starving. They're chasing us with dogs. Freaking, nah, I'm good. I'm not eating tree rat. Sorry.
If somebody doesn't know about SERE school, what's like your 30-second overview of it? Or it could be a 30-minute overview. I don't care.
It's a good school, man. It still is. You know, the survival and evasion and resistance classroom part was really awesome. There was this old 7th group sergeant major who taught the like the snares and traps, and apparently he was like the dude that would be like push him on his yard wearing like a loincloth, you know, that he had tanned himself. Like he was that weirdo dude into like primitive hunting, making his own bows.
Sounds like Andy.
Yeah, you know. And I'm pretty sure his name was Sergeant Major Smith, and he was just a wild man, and everything about him was wild, you know. And he was just a hunter, you know, and a trapper, and so he taught that portion of the class. And even though I'd come from what I thought was a pretty, robust background in that type of living, man, this dude was teaching me like some cool snare stuff, man, like stuff that I still play with to the day. And anyway, so that part was cool. And then if folks don't know, right, you go into the evasion phase. So there's a scenario, basically your helicopter crashes or whatever. Now you got to run to the, wherever the safe zone is, but the bad guys are chasing you. And you don't want to get caught, because if you get caught early, that means you go to Camp Slappy, the resistance training phase, right? Camp Slappy, that's its nicknamed. You go to jail, you go to prison, you are now being housed as a terrorist, as because it is, not a Geneva Convention country that you're in, right? Like we operate in that, clandestine space. It's not like you're being treated as a prisoner of war, right? You're being treated as a dog criminal, right? That invaded their country. So that's where they and it's not that rough. It's not like they close fists, punch you in the face and stuff. But I mean, let's face it, open-handed punch from, the hard cell interrogators. I mean, they're all full-grown SF dudes, so it can get a little rough, But what really sucks is like you're freezing. I went to SERE school in February, and it's all well water. And even in the summertime, the water is frigid. It comes out of the ground. It's frigid. They're spraying you, man. And like, I always remember like you're the whole class, 20-some people standing there in a mock formation. And it's so weird because little things, right? Like you can't, like when we stand at attention, we, close our fists. Well, they make you stand at attention. But if you close your fist, you've balled your fist up at them, and you'll pay for it. You can never be taller than them. So I remember there was this one female interrogator. She was like 5'3", and anytime they get closer, you have to like scrunch. So like the big tall guys, the 6'40", they were getting beat on just for being too tall. You ball up your fist. Oh, you're balling up your fist at me. Freaking you get handed to it. Of course, it's February. You're freezing, and like you're standing in PT in boots. In the formation, not in PT, in boots, just boots. And they're spraying you with this frigid water. There's a female interrogator, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not impressing anybody right now. You're freezing, you're hypothermic, freaking. I'm like, there's like hints at old school type of waterboarding and all that kind of stuff, putting you in the People's Pond. People's Pond is like a coffin-sized water hole where they hold you underwater. It's not like the People's Pond. That's like a water hole, bro. Yep. Well, you're going to be in it. So it was, it's a good course. I think it's worthwhile. It's something that guys need to be exposed to. But I don't think it can ever be, truly realistic.
Oh, no way. I couldn't imagine.
And it's like, I remember, I was being interrogated, and it was a fairly attractive woman they brought in, a soft cell interrogation. And, she offers you food and all that. And, I got my cover story. I think I'm all suave because everything's going good in this interrogation. And I remember she goes something along the lines. It was like, you're just not believable. And she got up and walked out. And I was like, dude, the door behind me busted open, and freaking in walked two of the biggest jack dudes I had ever seen in my life. And I took a beating. That's all she said. She was like, it was like a 30-minute interview. She's writing notes, very understanding, offering me food, speaking softly, And all she said, she goes, you're just not believable. Got up, walked out. And it was like 2 or 3 minutes. I'm just sitting there by myself. I'm like, I'm going to eat the rest of this food, And all of a sudden, boom, the door. And man, they worked me over. I was like, oh, this sucks. Like, I don't know how I could have told the story any better. But it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
You're going, no matter what you say, it's not believable.
Yeah.
They know. But SERE schools, now there's a couple other SERE schools out there. I went to another one that was a little rougher. And it was all an interrogation thing, a resistance thing. It wasn't the survival and invasion. And that one was a little rough, a little bit more physically rough. I think they're worthwhile, I guess. Yeah. You learn a lot about yourself there. So that's like the military thing. You learn a lot about yourself at Ranger School. You learn a lot about yourself in Hell Week, Yeah, I guess, but do we have to say it? It sounds so...
Yeah. What?
You're laughing because you know what I'm talking about.
I
You
know,
learn
I
a
know.
lot about yourself.
I know exactly what you're talking about. All right. Good childhood?
Yeah, man, I can't be too upset about my childhood. My dad taught me a lot. My mom, there's the bit of a joke that I was mama's baby boy. I was the only boy, older sister, younger sister. And yeah, maybe, mama loved her son. She definitely protected me from my father a couple times. My dad definitely wasn't physically abusive.
Yeah.
He had no problems with handing out a spanking. I can't remember a time that I toted an ass whooping that I didn't deserve it. Mm-hmm. And there was plenty of times where I got away with stuff that I did and he caught up later. But never a closed fist, not until high school when he was like, all right, today's the day, boy. Freaking, you think you're a man. So now we get to find out.
Yeah, you had done something.
I got arrested for possession of cocaine.
Well, okay.
Yeah. He was pretty pissed.
Yeah, right.
Disappointed, man.
I bet. Yeah.
My mom had died, and I was just out of control. And he was not. He didn't have the bandwidth to discipline me, man. He was dealing with the grief. He was. My dad was not a little dude, man. He was 205, freaking strong, very fit. He was a Vietnam era guy, 82nd Airborne dude, right?
That's incredible.
Yeah, man. He was a stud, hardworking guy, right? Like even in his 60s with Parkinson's disease, man. If you worked with him, you were tired at the end of the day. He did. He had Parkinson's, whatever. My mom got cancer and freaking after 4 years of fighting with that stuff, she finally passed. So yeah, man, he was dealing with that. I was being a bad kid, and yeah, man, I was dabbling in all kinds of dumb stuff, and I got in trouble for possession, and it was just a tiny bit, like personal use amount or whatever. It's not like I was trafficking for the cartels or anything, And yeah, man, he was pissed, freaking. So he was like, defend yourself, and he didn't punch me in the face. I think he let me have one to the noggin, and I don't think I even tried to fight back, man. I knew I was wrong and I deserved it. And I had enough respect for him that I wouldn't have laid a hand on him anyway, even though I was getting my little punishment. Yeah. And it wasn't bad, right? Like he didn't draw blood, no bruises, nothing, but he let me have a couple good ones. I deserved it. But like I said, man, he never abused me. He wasn't all hugs and kisses type of dad. He wasn't like present with his feelings or anything like that. He was a tough guy. Yeah. And looking back, I know better now because the last couple of years he was in the Army, he was on 105 howitzers, right? Every time they set one of those things off, he got a TBI.
Yep.
Every single time.
Just destroying his
brain.
brain.
No ear pro. And then when I was like probably 5th grade, he was on a Honda Big Red 3-wheeler. How many people got screwed up on the Honda Big Red 3-wheeler in the 1980s?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is death traps.
And the funny thing is you see people like restoring them now, and I'm like, oh. I saw a dude the other day with a 250R, the 2-stroke racing 3-wheeler, and I was like, oh, that's how you die. That thing right there. It's a rocket ship you can't steer.
Yes.
But yeah, man, we were going down the field roads. I was on a little quad, man, pegged out fast as it goes. So, whatever, 40, 50 mile an hour. And he hit like a little drainage cut they had put in the road. And, man, it knocked him completely out. Bad concussion. He was out for like 3 days, man, freaking, and a bad TBI. To the point which, like, if he was under a piece of equipment, he would get like vertigo and stuff. So the dude had a TBI, and he probably was toting some PTSD.
Yeah.
So me looking back now, I understand so much of his behavior more.
Wow.
But as a kid, how could I have known?
There's no way for you.
No one knew, right? Like, if there's one thing our war and our generation has done is brought to light TBI, PTSD, and motivated modern medicine to seek treatment and cures for those things. He didn't have all that. So he had a temper, man. Like, he didn't have patience. All the pure signs of PTSD, he had it. And again, as a teenager, I didn't know. But yeah, man, my mother was a very loving person. You know, she demanded I go to church. So my dad made sure I did.
That's awesome.
And I don't regret it one bit, right? I
No,
learned
that's
so much.
yeah,
and,
no,
and
it's amazing.
Small town church, you know, everything revolved around Stonewall Methodist Church, right? Everything, the dinners in town, I mean, the support groups, everything. The church was it, you know.
I bet when you were, or I mean, you're still in the military, you know, still currently serving our nation, which is incredible. You know, thank you for still answering that call and what you do for the new generation, these young soldiers that get to come up under you. I hope they understand. Oh, one day they will know.
It's frustrating, but it is the
yeah.
only reason I do it, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, I mean, if I have to go teach a class for 3 or 4 weeks, I mean, I lose money, you know, but it is about handing it off to the next generation because there's no combat experience left in SOF. It's all gone, right? You're not going to find more than a couple of team sergeants in all of SF with combat freaking experience.
They've all gotten out.
Everybody got out.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't they?
Yeah. Well,
you know?
thank you for still doing that. But I bet a lot of your time in the teams, right, in your teams, brought you back to the feeling of growing up in like the small town church, right? Because I know
cohesiveness.
Yes, you know, the cohesiveness,
community, all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think society, because of social media, tosses the word community around like it with no real value.
They don't. Yeah.
I don't use the word like that. Like, to me, a community is a collective. You know, like in my community, if someone died, even if you didn't know them, you went to their funeral. Mm-hmm. You went and took food to their house. You know, the community came together to take care of them. It was a collective. And like, if someone prominent in that community, you know, got sick or died or something, the whole community felt it. And so I think we use those terms so loosely nowadays with social media and stuff that, you know, like, you know, the 2A community. I don't know that's it's the wrong word, right? There's no community there.
It's a bunch of arguing and literally talking crap about each other.
Right. You know, all the while the adversaries on the other side of the fence are organized, cohesive, have demonstrations, riots, freaking, it's all orchestrated.
Yeah.
While, you know, you got guys that are like-minded that are willing to freaking argue to the death over what barrel-length carbine is the right one. What red dot freaking is great. You know, should we put a red dot on your pistol or not? Like, we're arguing about that stuff while the other side is running our country into
The ground.
just destroying it, right? Worse than running into the ground, right? But yeah, I mean, the same deal, right? We talked about it a little bit. The soft community. Dude, man, SF guys or soft guys are horrible to each other. It's not a community, man. Freaking, you would think with so much shared experiences, shared knowledge, cut from the same cloth, like-mindedness, that we would get along and bolster each other and support each other. No, man.
I bet so I know I'd like to talk about like what prompted you to go in the military and what was your path in through selection and everything, because those are all, you know, they have to be incredible stories.
It's way simpler than you think. My dad let me watch Rambo First Blood when I was like 8 years old.
Same.
That's it.
That's same. Yes, same.
And from that day on, you know, them Green Berets, they're real badasses, right? You know, freaking ignore the heat, the cold. Dude, I was, yes, man.
Yes.
I wanted to go freaking hang out in caves and freaking, you know, with torches and a badass knife, you know. Yeah, so, I mean, that's really it, man. I wish it was something else. After that, I did read, like, a lot of books, a lot of the Green Beret books from Vietnam, but also, like, some of the best books I ever read was, like, about the lineage of the 101st Airborne's reconnaissance guys.
Yeah.
LRPs, LLRP, long-range reconnaissance patrols, the long-range reconnaissance guys. I mean, they were, you know, they would go into North Vietnam with 4- and 6-man teams, freaking, for reconnaissance patrols, and freaking, you know, once every 2 days pull up comms because direction finding equipment and stuff like that, and send in a sit rep. I mean, these guys were the stud of studs with freaking reconnaissance patrols.
Have you got? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Mac V SOG, all that stuff. Loved it.
So have you heard some of John Strucker-Meyer's episodes with Jocko?
Yeah.
You just know some of his stories.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy,
Monsters, man.
dude,
Those dudes are monsters.
incredible human.
Yeah. All in a jungle. I mean, like with us, man, yeah, there was some wooded stuff in Afghanistan and stuff, but like most of the time we were stood off. These dudes, I mean, they were choosing to carry shotguns because they were fighting so close. You know? Right? Like, where in Afghanistan would you have ever been like, man, I'm going to take out my 12 gauge shotgun tonight on this mission? Right? I mean, maybe you're a breaching shotgun, but even in Afghanistan, right? Like, you didn't need it. You just push the door open. Yeah, right? Like, oh, look, let me push this door off the hinge. Just breach her up.
Pull this rug down. Oh, door's open.
Right? You know, yeah, those guys were amazing, man. They did crazy stuff.
Heroes.
Crazy
I mean,
stuff.
yeah, I remember watching a lot of those movies, reading a lot of the same books, and you know, as a kid, I was just like, I'm going to either be a Green Beret or a Navy SEAL. And then as I got older, I drifted back towards the Navy SEAL realm. But
was there something for you that pointed you in that direction?
yeah, so well, I'm not exaggerating. Literally Rambo around the same age, but then also watching Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen. I was like, this is incredible.
Okay.
But there's a documentary.
They had a really cool scope on that 50 cal. I still want one of those.
Dude, this is God. Oh man, that's a line from the movie.
X-ray thermal technology. We need that. We need that.
I need to watch that.
Okay, we're gonna make that happen.
It's horrible.
It's so bad.
Doesn't matter.
It's so bad.
It's so
It's
Doesn't
great.
matter.
Like the movie Commando.
Horrible movies, man. If you watch some of those movies,
If you
now,
watch them
you're
now, you're like, what? But back then, it
we
was
were kids and it was amazing.
I wanted those same knives. I had those same knives with the compass on the back. You would unscrew
Of course,
it.
it's my knife.
I kept my matches
Yep,
in there.
yep.
My
Fishing hook.
fishing hook with the fishing line.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was like half-pound fishing line. Like if you had caught anything bigger than a minnow, it would have broke loose.
Yeah. Well, you know, you use that to fish or, you know, set up your booby traps and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember from the line in Navy SEALs when Charlie Sheen is trying to open the door like quietly. I remember forever as a kid, I would do that when I was trying to sneak around, where he puts his fingers on the door like this. He's like opening it up. And it's like, literally that has zero to do with the quietness of the door, but it's just the way he did it
Movies.
in the movie. I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, it's so funny, man. Freaking, you know, you were talking about like guys that did both. I had a team leader. Dude was a stud. Islander, probably a little bit of Samoan in him. Freaking PT stud, dude. He played college ball, and yeah, he went to Butts right out of college. I don't know. I think he spent 8 or 10 years on the teams. Freaking first name Chemo.
Yeah.
You know, ever met him? I don't know.
No.
Dude was a stud. Of course, as an officer, he didn't spend a lot of time operational, right?
Yeah.
They don't get to do that. Well, so he could get back operational, right? He got out, went to the Guard, SF. It's like, that's where everybody goes, right? I mean, we got all
It's a hidden secret.
Half of the National Guard SF are prior Marines, freaking MARSOC guys who have already been to a selection, are getting out as fast as they can and going over to selection, freaking the recon was right? Like, man, my buddy is the North Carolina 20th Group SF recruiter for the 2 companies that are in. And dude, like, he's like, yeah, man, 8 out of 10 guys I'm signing up are freaking Marines.
That's crazy. What's the age limit on that for guys?
You know what? I don't know. I know of dudes going to selection over 40. You know, so
That's incredible.
yeah. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, that was my motivation for going into SOF. And then again, you know, I always joke that I failed out of college, right? You know, like whenever somebody says thank you for your service, I'm like, that's what happens when you fail out of college. That's not 100% accurate. It's me making light of the situation. My dad was trying to help us go to college. He wanted me to go to college to have a better life, something different than him. That generation, that's what they wanted for us, and that was when college could actually be a good investment, right? So he wanted me to go to school. My older sister, when I started my freshman year in college, my older sister was starting her freshman year in medical school, And my dad was trying to help her as much as possible, pay for that, so she didn't have to have a job and she could get good grades. And,
Wow.
well, so then my little sister's 1 year behind me. She starts college, and now I'm a sophomore. Man, my dad just was killing himself to try to help us with college monies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wanted my little sister to be able to have, you know, a college degree and that kind of stuff. So that was also a big motivator for me joining.
Wow.
And then I met a fellow named Jason McKenzie in college. He was enlisted dude, enlisted Green Beret, going through ROTC to become an officer. And he tells me about this amazing secret that no one knows about, but it's not even a secret, and it's called the National Guard Special Forces. And even then I was like, wait, what? How's that possible? Like National Guard, like 1 week in a month. Come to find out, they obviously work a lot more than that. And he told me, he's like, yeah, man, the pros of this, like, hey, you can go to selection. You don't have to join active duty. If something does happen to you, you get hurt, right? You go back to your life. You don't go down the street to the 82nd Airborne picking up trash, you know, that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, sign me up. And sure enough, man, on a Tuesday morning in that second or third spring semester, I went down to the recruiter and signed up. And then I drove home. I went home. So I get home, my dad's not home. I'm like, all right, whatever. Throw my running shoes on, go for a run. Sure enough, bumped into him on the road. And so he's with my stepmother, or my stepmother's with him. And, you know, wow, man, he was so lucky, dude. Freaking, he was so lucky at the same time. Two amazing women, both taken from him by cancer. Poor guy, man. My stepmother, dude, like, what an amazing human being. Became one of my best friends. I mean, she was awesome. Very different from my mom. Very loving, caring, that kind of stuff. But my mom was very much a rural country girl. My stepmother, Carol, grew up in California, right? I would say she was like Martha Stewart on steroids. I would come home and freaking, she would make me a sandwich, right? Or something quick and easy, right? That literally handed it to me on a paper towel. Dude, it would be like silverware laid out properly with the right napkin folded the right way on this plate, and, you know, all set there on the bar, this whole fixing, right? Like, and she could whip it up like that.
amazing.
Yeah, she was an entertainer.
Yeah.
She knew how to do all that kind of stuff, that proper entertainment stuff.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to watch her. And she took great pride in it, and she could fix amazing food. I was used to, Southern soul food. I grew up on, fried chicken, mashed potatoes and stuff, and here she was fixing all this fancy stuff I'd never even heard of before. And I was like, this is deliciousness. And it was healthy.
That's awesome.
It was, California food. So she was amazing, man. Long story short, I was running down the road. Of course, he sees me and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I withdrew from college and joined the Army." And he's like, "What the And like, you can tell, man, he's mad. He went from 0 to mad. And dude, she reached over and put her hand on his shoulder, and she goes, "Let him finish his run and come back to the house and tell us what's going on."
What an amazing
And
woman.
she had that type of wisdom, and she had that type of effect on him, that when she touched him, he would calm down, which is kind of funny because Melissa has that same type of effect on me.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
All she has to do is touch me.
Yeah.
And like, I'm chill.
That's rad. Yeah.
And it was probably the same thing with my dad and her. But yeah, I went home and explained it to him what I was doing, and he was just like, So, when it came time to go to selection, bro, I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I could not fail. I would have let him down. I would have let so many people down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you
maybe.
wouldn't
I
have.
don't know.
No,
I don't.
I mean, in reality,
in my mind.
Yeah.
right.
No, I get it, because I thought the same thing going through Buds, but then afterwards,
Can't
when I
quit.
talked to her, I was like, I didn't want to let you down, and every single person was like, you wouldn't have.
How could you have?
Yeah.
Right.
But I understand what
You got to do it.
and it's dude, it's awesome, I think, in life for humans to paint themselves in a corner.
I used to enjoy writing a lot. When I owned my gym and stuff like that, I would write articles and on a blog, when that was the thing. And I wrote this article one time about the no option solution. When you have no options left, right? You have that one option, and that's to succeed. And that's where I was at. I learned that lesson in selection, that if I got no options, I have to be successful here. I have to do everything right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of folks, if they had that kind of pressure that they even put on themselves, much less got it from an exogenous source, it would, they buckle, right? And that's what selection and buds and all the screener course is all about, is, taking away all those comforts and all those options. For me, of course, they always dangle it right in front of you. You can quit anytime you want.
For
Quitting's
sure.
the easiest thing at any of these courses.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an option, right?
good.
I was lucky enough to be a first time go. Got picked up. I was young because I was a guard guy and I had no experience. I got pulled into the board 2 or 3 different times, interrogated, kicked out of the board, and they were like, "What in the heck could you possibly bring to the regiment?" And so I explained it to him. When I was 14 years old, I started my first business and blah, blah. And it was kind of funny. I remember Sergeant Major just kind of looking at me like, I didn't really want you to answer. I didn't really give a damn what you had to say. But it was like, now I'm kind of interested. And I really feel like the things I had done in high school and had my own business and stuff, I used to rent my father's tractor and would go bush hog or heavy mow, brush mow for the realtor companies. And I would go pitch to realtor companies. And obviously I'm like 14, 15 years old, so I would drive the tractor down the highway to wherever I needed to go because I couldn't put it on the trailer and pull it with a truck.
No excuses.
Exactly.
No excuses. Just getting it done,
just,
man.
Be bobbing around this little, little tractor with a bush hog on it. And but I was making like $100 an hour. You're talking like in the early 90s as a 15, 16 years old.
I remember you talked about this on another podcast,
which worked out great.
Unreal.
Come Saturday, I could ask a couple of girls to go to the beach, man. Freaking, and I was like rich. But I had to pull full maintenance on that tractor. Freaking something broke, I had to fix it. Something, changing the oil and the hydraulic fluid, that was all on me. And he taught me that, and he was like, hey, if you're going to lease and rent my tractor, you're going to maintain it, and so, he, not forcibly, but, freaking made it very clear that if I was going to continue that business, I was going to change that oil, at a certain amount of hours, right? So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Life lessons, just teaching you how to be a responsible adult and how to be a man.
Right. And I'll tell you, man, my dad's, one thing I did not get from him is my teaching style, because his teaching style was, hey, by the time I get home, son, you better have done this, this, and this. And I would be like, Dad, I don't know how to do that, or that. And he would be like, you better figure it out. That was his instructional method. You better figure it out.
I can tell from the last 2 days with you, and obviously the previous time, that's why I was like, oh, this dude's teaching ability. But to watch you work with Aiden, and that's what was special for me, was just to be able to be there, be present, be a dad, right? And just, let him learn. And obviously I was going to help when I am, but, a lot of people were like, wait, hold on. Like, you're not teaching your son long-range shooting? And I said, well, I have failed to make it a priority. I haven't done it. He's 18. He just graduated high school. He wants to be able to go on a hunt one day, like a legit hunt. If
I only knew some music could make
No,
that
I know. Weird, huh? I'm gonna have to do and but I have never made it a priority to get him on a gun, and of course, you already. I'm assuming you could know the jokes like Navy SEAL paying a Green Beret, Navy SEAL sniper teaching. A Navy SEAL sniper paying a Green Beret sniper to teach your son long-range shooting. And I said, yes. 1, Tony's my friend. 2, I want to support Tony's business. 3, Tony's a much better instructor than me. 4, I just want to be present with my son. I failed to do it. I failed to do it so many times, and I was like, you know what? This can be fun. And now Aiden and I we talked the whole way back about, just everything he liked and things he wants to work on and everything else like that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now we have a solid base and a foundation, and my daughters are pissed I didn't bring them. Legitimately,
dude, I only got to be
mad.
around your daughters for what, an hour and a half?
Yeah.
What a couple of little Spitfires, dude. Clearly very intelligent.
Yes.
Freaking. It was kind of funny because you were knocking on Aiden's door or something when we first interacted, and one of them says, "We're twins," and I was like, "Yeah, I couldn't tell." And that was how we set the stage for our interaction right off the bat. And they were like, "Huh, you know,
Okay.
like, okay,
Yep.
this is how we're gonna do this, huh?" You know, and I was like, "Uh-oh."
That's why
they kind of looked at me like, "Oh, okay, that's how we're gonna do this,"
Now
and
we
I was
got
like, "Uh-oh."
That's why at dinner, Nola, she asked you some question. What?
Very intelligent
Oh.
questions, bro.
Yes.
Wow.
She was going. Oh, she was trying to make fun of you. That's where that came from.
Oh, really?
About the sweet tea thing. She goes,
Oh.
"You're not from Texas, are you?" No. And
And you know what I should have said was, "You aren't either."
exactly from Mississippi, girl.
All right.
Yes, you
Are
should have.
you?
That would have been amazing. But that's what she was trying to do. Was like, oh, that's why you didn't order sweet tea. And you're
No,
like,
and I'm like,
you're
no,
like,
ma'am, I'm trying not to get diabetes.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, and I'll tell you, man, you know, I take teaching as a huge responsibility. Teaching firearms, or whatever it is, right? If I'm teaching a young lady, you know, to carry and shoot a pistol, man, the responsibility it weighs on me.
Yeah.
So there was some pressure, right? When, you know, my bro says he wants me to, you know, teach his son, right? Like, I took that very seriously. Like, it's a huge responsibility and honor. I've had a handful of bros hit me up and be like, "Ah, man, you know what, dude? I went to SIFSIC or SODIC in 2009. Well, things have changed a lot since then,
lot.
right? We've got these little whiz-bang freaking little gadgets and stuff, and the technology and the laser rangefinders and all that. So, man, it's an honor when one of us asks me to give them a refresher. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, like, wow. And then for you to, you know, ask me, you know, to teach your son, I was like, okay. I mean, it's
awesome.
I mean, an honor, man, and I consider it to be a huge responsibility, and that's what drives me to be a good instructor. It's a responsibility. I assume, maybe not in long range, but like pistol and carbine work, I make the assumption that the next time, I don't care if I'm training super troopers or if I'm training Sally the soccer mom for home defense, right? It doesn't matter. My assumption is the next time they squeeze the trigger, it's to defend themselves or their loved ones or someone else, right? So that's the level of training I'm trying to get them to right then and there, that they can win whatever fight they encounter, whether it's somebody kicking in their door or some badass DA operation somewhere in some, you know, crappy place on the other side of the world.
Well, it's very apparent. So, okay, so going through selection, you're super young. The board is like, hey, wait, hold on. Like, are you actually supposed to be here? Because you weren't supposed to be there that young, correct?
No, so I was actually in E3. They didn't catch it. They literally caught it at the board. And then it came to light to the company commander on stage at graduation. And when I say on stage, it was like in the little metal building.
Because it's a
right?
private thing, right?
Yeah, out at Camp McCall. And I don't want to call it a stage. It was like the front of the classroom, you know. And it was funny because you got the first sergeant freaking, you know, calling out the names. And then you shake the commander's hand and get your little certificate thingy. And they were like, you know, it's sergeant this, captain that, you know, second lieutenant. You know, some of the guard guys can go to second lieutenants or excuse me, first lieutenants. On and on. You know, staff sergeant, sergeant first class, corporal, freaking, and he's like private for. And he like leans over and like asks the first sergeant. He's like, and they're talking. And it's, and he's like, private first class Cowden, you know? And he's like, as I walk by, he's like, I don't know, like, what are you even doing here? Because back then, it was before the SF Baby program, the 18 X-ray program. So it was basically, you know, you had to be an E4 promotable to even try out. Well, I'm not even E4, much less promotable. And they were like, all right, give him a shot, you know? And then, you know, the Q course was up next, the school. I went to selection in like March time frame or mid-spring, and then my Q course day I was supposed to start in like September. I was in the racing motocross and I broke my femur, my arm and 2 ribs the weekend before I was supposed to start the Q course. And I will tell you this, I've had some injuries. Broken femur is up there. It was some painfulness. Now, don't get me wrong, speed kills, right? And I was rolling when I crashed, and it banged me up really good. I was in hospital for like 10 days. I was just so beat up. Yeah. So it pushed me back. I was supposed to go to the 18 Delta course. I was going to be a medic.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a medic.
Is that because like your sister?
It's kind of funny, man.
I mean, or you just drawn to medicine?
I was, it's funny, man. My dad pushed my sister to be a doctor, and she never wanted to be one. She wanted to be in business. She was wanted to be in business. And actually, she is in the last 10 years at least, she's not really been a practicing doctor. She's been more an administrative. Like she got her like her MBA from Harvard. Right, so she's not a practicing doctor. She's a research scientist more than she is a practicing doctor.
You guys have some strong, intelligent family genes.
My dad did pretty good, man. Freaking, like if you Google her name, you'll see where, like, pages, and she got on the map. I'll brag a little bit about her because it's kind of funny, man. I joke my sister's the T1000, right? I am the chill, easy to get along with one in the family. She is aggressive. I'm chill, man. And people are like, what? Like, what is that? How could you? She's just that way, man. She's just super aggressive, hyper motivated, very intelligent, brilliant. But her first thing that put her on the map, man, and I'll brag about her a little bit, she was running this study on prepubescent males who, they were well behind on growth, right? And they did a study with the breast cancer drug tamoxifen or anostrozole, right? The anti-estrogen, the same anti-estrogen guys will take when they're using testosterone and stuff. Yeah. It keeps those drugs from aromatizing or transferring to estrogen. Well, they're breast cancer drugs. They block the receptor site, so estrogen can't get in those tissues, right? And high estrogen levels causes a lot of different cancers. Well, anyway, they proved with administering tamoxifen that estrogen causes us to stop growing. So like when we finally do mature and testosterone naturally turns to estrogen, we stop growing. Well, it's post-puberty, right? So the growth plates in your bones, the receptor sites in them bind with estrogen, they can no longer grow. So they would block these prepubescent males who were, 50%, right? You got a 12-year-old that's, smaller than 8-year-olds. And they would use tamoxifen and block. And if I'm not 100% quoting the study perfectly, right? Like, obviously, it's not my realm. But anyway, they had, little 12-year-olds that next thing you know, boom, they started growing again. And it was such a, talk small world, man. A good friend of mine who I met when I moved to Wilmington, a few years later, he was telling me, like, yeah, my oldest son, man, but hold on a second. They called my sister. She put him in contact with her the doctor that researched that, because she kind of went a different route. Put my friend in touch. Freaking, his son's like 5'11" now. Small world, amazing stuff. But that study put her on the map in the research.
That is,
she's a pediatric she's a pediatric endocrinologist. So pretty specialized, right? And then the research, she's been in Boston in the biotech world her whole career, man, and like she's somebody in that world. So pretty amazing stuff, man. But yeah, she's the aggressive one.
That's amazing.
But
so
yeah, my dad, he wanted them to do well. Long story short, the whole medical thing, she wanted to be in business. I was the one who wanted to be a doctor. My plan for the military was to go 18 Delta and then one day have the military pay for me to either go to medical school or PA school. Break my leg, recovery. I was still limping 8 months later when I started the Q course. And because of the timeline, I got talked into switching MOSs and going 18 Charlie, which is, explosives and demo. Engineer, as we call it.
Let's go.
And had I been in the medic course, I would have missed Afghanistan. My entire career is pivotal around serious injuries. Some of the best things that ever happened to me in my career were after I had a career-changing injury. And a couple of my injuries I thought were career-ending. So I was lucky. I would have missed the initial push in Afghanistan I would have still been in language school because the 18 Delta course is so long.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to say I got lucky when I crashed and broke a bunch of stuff, but, it changed my career. for the better. I guess for the better. I don't have something else to compare it to.
So selection, you're at a unit, Q course, and injury shifts, 18 Charlie, right? And 9/11 happens, and you guys head over there right away.
Yeah, well, it's kind of weird, man. I was actually participating in what's called like one of the RedCell things against the nuclear command and control.
The RedCell things are some of the coolest things,
Aren't they?
It's
What
I've been
is a
doing it.
red cell thing?
So, for folks listening,
for the
it's
NCCs.
They don't do that for NCCs.
Nah.
We don't get red cells.
it's there's two types basically, if you want to categorize them, like the like open, where you go in and assess and test the security at a government facility or similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or an institution. It doesn't have to be a hard facility. Or in this case, we were playing a cellular terrorist network. In our case, it was kind of simulating like Russian infiltration, but leaning towards terrorism. And our goal was to interdict these different targets that belong to the nuclear command and control, right? The NCCC, the things that take over once the missiles launch.
Yeah.
Those protocols. So those, there's so many different assets, right? It was kind of cool. One thing I got out of it was a TS clearance very early in my career. Back then, there was no E6s with TS clearances. Well, I got an interim TS to do this program, and it led to me being able to get a legitimate TS clearance very early. That helped me later, go to work over at the agency. Even though the security clearances don't transfer between the two organizations, between the DoD and the
It's
agency.
easy to get a new one.
Right. It's established. It's there, So
Yeah.
I was lucky there on that one. And I was just young, man. I didn't look like an SF dude. I was still kind of a skinny college kid, man. I was probably still at that time only like $180, I hadn't gone to Iraq where all we did was jack steel, freaking. I always say Iraq was a lot like being in prison, freaking. You didn't, not like you had anything to do. You go lift weights, So, yeah, right?
You come back from deployment and you get out of shape.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Totally.
it's.
But yeah, man, freaking, that's what we were doing in the morning of 9/11 was actually the day we were supposed to interdict our targets. My target was an Air Force general with a suitcase in a mobile EMP protected convoy that you would never notice.
Yeah.
Because it was not like big black tractor trailer trucks. They were regular looking trailer trailers. So it was mixed looking. One was like blue. One was like, regular trucks. And they would disperse themselves. They wouldn't ride like, bumper to bumper. And they had Air Force, they call them the Raven units that they're the security detail for those assets. And so there would be mixed max cars all in the convoy. And they'd be spread out over miles over the interstate. And I followed them, and I was working them for months. And I was working with a cell, 4 total people and a handler. The only person I ever saw until 9/11, when the gig was up, was the handler. And he was a warrant officer from 5th Group. So it was basically, I was guard bumming, is the term, right, over for this project for 5th Group. And it happens, freaking, all I had to do to interdict this general was take a picture of him inside of like 400 meters or 300 meters to simulate a sniper shot. And there were cells all around the world doing things, planes, right? Where they got these special planes that are EMP protected and they have command and control centers in them and all this stuff. And they look like regular planes, there's like a couple little things on them that if you know what you're looking for. So like there were teams working like in Incirlik, Turkey at that air base. Freaking big air base that these things work out of in California, Oklahoma, former missile silo type installations and stuff, right? Like NORAD type stuff, man, crazy stuff. And I'm this young, dumb dude with no deployments, no nothing. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I had no clue.
How old?
I'd have been 24.
Jeez.
Yeah, I was a baby.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, man, 9/11 happens, and I get a text message on my little burner phone. Move to Xville and then come to such and such hotel on highway such and such. And it was my handler, and I'm like, I'm not compromised. I'm fine. But I saw the detail. They also had a platoon of Marines. I saw them kind of getting spun up.
And I was like, I don't really know what's going on. Like, I'm not compromised. Freaking, I had like crawled in the freaking, little waterway gutter thing all night, was laying in some bushes and, and I was like, I texted him, I was like, I'm good, man. I'm not compromised. And he's like I could feel the tone in the text message. Like, I said, move to freaking such and such at such and such immediately. And I was like, all right. So what had taken me like 3 hours to crawl, now I'm like hustling out. Well, then all of a sudden the Marines are freaking roving patrols, and they've got magazines in their M16s. And I'm like, I mean, like, one of them, they drove right past me, man. I'm like, I had gone to Walmart and bought like the leafy ghetto flage or whatever, the freaking leafy flage, like cheap ghillie suit. Like, I wasn't taking it serious. I had a get out of jail free card with like a colonel's phone number on it. I was like, I mean, I didn't want to get busted, but I wasn't worried that I did. Well, I didn't know that we were under attack, and those Marines would have killed me, you know, freaking. Because they went full on what was DEFCON back then before it was ThreatCon.
Because he snuck. So you understand, he snuck into base.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I just.
Yeah, he is in a place that he is not supposed to be.
Not at all.
And that colonel card doesn't get you anywhere right after a plane flies through a building.
Right.
Yep.
So I hustled my tail back out, freaking.
That's something they'll look at later and be
Yeah.
like, oh, I wish he would have shown us that a minute ago. Well, how many stamps does he have on his sandwich card?
Went back, found, I'd stashed the rental car and stuff, and freaking hauled tail back and I pull up this little roadside, 1960 built, type little motel. And the parking lot is full of rental cars. Dude, it was not just my cell. There was like 6 other cells on that guy, right? Total cellular network, old school tradecraft, no communications, right? Like, my teammates and I, we didn't meet until that hotel. We were doing dead drops, freaking old school Cold
James
War,
Bond, man.
Cold War tradecraft,
That's so cool,
right? And there's like literally not a class at the time, not a course at SF, maybe ASO3 a little bit, that was teaching that kind of stuff. I was getting exposed to it, and I was like, this is amazing. I didn't even know how amazing it was. I had a free reign on, my travel voucher for that was like $35,000 for a couple months. Hotels every night. I mean, there was times where, like, if I thought my rental car got compromised, I'd go get another one. I mean, there was days where I had 3 different rental cars, freaking, and sometimes 2 at the same time, right? I mean, and we were like, remember how you had the decals, the base decals, the base sticker in your windshield? To get on base, I went to like the local service center, or body shop.
Oh my god!
Hopped the fence, and freaking with a lighter and a little scraper, razor blade, peeled off a DoD sticker and put it on my rental car, right through the gate at one of the nuclear command and control center base. Wow. Yeah. Stuff like that.
dude. The butt chewing that guy got for losing his sticker.
Yeah. So it was an amazing program, and that's what I was doing on 9/11, man. Freaking, I got into that hotel room, and everyone, that hotel room's no bigger than this room, and there was 30 dudes in there, and females, freaking, and it was like, what the, and on the little rinky-dink freaking television, were planes flying into buildings in New York. We were like, oh, and, the plane that flew into the Pentagon, freaking, we got to see that, freaking, that hadn't happened yet.
Whoa.
And it was like, okay, well, now what? Of course, the NCCC elements in and around the area were notified that we were there. And they actually requested us escort them to Fort Carson, Colorado. So we were in Oklahoma. And so it was like a 12, 14-hour drive or something to Carson. Of course, all planes were grounded. I mean, there were unit guys there. There were freaking dev group dudes there, like guys that need to get back to base because war. The dudes who are really going first, and of course we were all trying to figure out how the heck we're going to get back and stuff. So, we went to drove to Carson, and everybody got flights back to their base, like C-17s and freaking C-5s or whatever, military planes that could fly, and so we all got returned to bases, and that was kind of the deal. It was like, well, what do you want to do? I actually had orders to go to Halo school. And like for a young SF dude, that's a big deal, right? We don't all go to Halo school. Yeah. And that was the question. You want to go to Afghanistan? Or you want to go to Halo school? And I was like, are we jumping in Afghanistan? No.
then I want to go to Afghanistan. Right? The hell with jumping out of an airplane. If we're not jumping into Afghanistan, I obviously don't need Halo school. So yeah, man, a few months later, a couple weeks later, man, we were sitting in freaking, Karshi-Khanabad, Uzbekistan, the air base there in Uzbekistan, preparing to launch into Afghanistan. Crazy stuff, man. Dude. Still trying to figure out whether or not the helicopters can fly over the Hindu Kush or not.
Oh yeah. You 12 Strong? Did you ever watch that movie?
Those
Did
were the
you
northern
like it?
guys. Those were like the fifth group. I think that was the I guess that would have been their 2nd Battalion guys.
Yeah.
They were all up in Kunduz. They were the guys that linked up with Dostum and all those guys up north in Masari Sharif. So we were down south, Tora Bora, freaking Gardez, Jalalabad, Nangarhar.
Now, I know this is like this stupid question that people ask, but did you enjoy that movie? Did you watch it? Did you read the book? Or did you just already know all the stuff about it and you're like, I'm good?
Yeah, so I kind of knew the story of that team and that warrant and that kind of stuff. So when I saw the movie, I was like, well, that's not really what happened. And I was kind of bummed because I was like, man, it was a cool story. Y'all didn't have to make anything up. It was like if you had just done a documentary on it, right? And like not based on true events, but like, hey, man, just tell the story the way it actually happened. It would have been an amazing movie. So the liberties they took with that movie it was just disappointing.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, man, Hollywood had an opportunity to do an amazing story. And, the average person doesn't know the difference. They're like, oh, that was awesome, man. But it was like, that's not really what happened.
Yeah.
And when nobody run around freaking, they weren't shooting their M4s in combat and, fighting off horseback. It's not what happened. So the movie just went a little too far. So it was more disappointing than it's like, man, y'all had an opportunity to do a really cool movie and you kind of screwed it.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah. I thought it was a great movie, and it just made me proud of just the American fighting force and what we've done, knowing that it was a movie. And I knew there was some major elaborations.
I always thought it was kind of amazing that people thought it was amazing that we got on horses. I'm like, why is that weird?
Why is that weird?
Right?
Why would we not? That's a tool. It's an asset.
Absolutely. We were already doing like pack mule classes and all that kind of stuff. Like, I was like, why do y'all think horseback, like the rest of the world still uses horsebacks? Like the third world, so there's still horses all over the world.
Yeah.
Just because we don't have them in U.S. cities, there's still an actual viable tool for farming and cultivation and transportation.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that always kind of blew my mind. I'm like, why do people think it's amazing that we had horses?
One of the things I love about Marty B's that we had dinner at tonight, you couldn't have seen it, or I mean, you might have, being who you are, but most people would miss it if they didn't know about it, especially the way we came in. But as we were leaving and we stopped by the 7-Eleven to grab water, right as we were leaving Marty B's, to the left of the edge of that parking lot, that gravel parking lot there's actually a section for horse parking.
Oh, really? I didn't see
it. And the kids think it's the coolest thing. Me as an adult, I think it's the coolest thing also when people...
It makes you want a horse.
Yes.
Right.
And when my wife listens to this, just know that that's another reason why I need a horse, babe.
Yes.
Okay, anyways. It's the coolest thing when people ride up to Marty
It's like the one
B's.
animal I can't have is a horse.
Why?
You allergic?
Oh, no. Because it's too much work and I'm gone. So I would leave it in Melissa's lap. It was
okay.
I actually got gifted a badass horse from a badass breeder.
This is literally the same reason why Amanda said I can't have a horse.
Yeah, it's just too much. And we're not the type of person that we would board a horse, right? That horse is going on our property, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be part of us.
And you guys do a lot of stuff together, like crazy 200-mile races, and
hopefully that's in the past.
we'll talk about that soon. But you guys live life together. Yeah. I mean, you're traveling, you're doing stuff.
She's my best friend. Like, and we do cool together, right? Like if you got a bud that you're like, man, I want to, I want to go do something cool together. No, man, like she's always the first person I ask to go do cool stuff.
That's amazing. As it should be, right?
If I'm doing cool stuff with one of my bros, it's probably because she couldn't make it or she just straight up thought it was stupid and didn't want to do it. She's like, go do that dumb mess with your friends, with all your knucklehead friends.
That's awesome.
But I say that, man, like she loves us. Freaking, she would much rather hang out with me and you than she just doesn't have. I mean, she's only got a couple of close friends, and it's too bad. Like her closest friend is in Colorado. Girl she's been friends with, a woman she's been friends with for since dental school.
Wow.
She's just a dentist. She's not a doctor. She's just a dentist. They went to dental school together. She was just out there last weekend visiting her, and her name's Krista. Krista's. It's funny because. I think a lot of Krista, and I wish Melissa could live closer to her, because Krista's just like a chill, cool human being, not a drama queen, nothing.
Yeah,
you know,
those are nice.
And, Melissa comes back from hanging out with her, happier than when she left. Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think Krista is like grounding for Melissa or something.
We all have those people in our lives.
Yeah,
it's
but
awesome.
Yeah, she's my buddy, man. Freaking, and it's cool, right? Like
no
weekend
horses.
after next, we're gonna go shoot a sniper comp together. Yeah, and there's no assumption that we're going to win because it's not like there's co-ed team division. I'm going to be shooting against sniper teams that, are literally sniper teams. And she's just my dentist girlfriend. We're going to shoot it and have fun. And if we get last place, the chances are we won't even check to see our placing. We're just going to go have fun together.
Yeah, you and her getting last place, I'd put a large amount of money that doesn't happen. I know how you shoot. I know how she shoots. There's been multiple things that you guys have gone to where she cleaned the whole stage and no other male or female cleaned the stage. She was shooting over a vehicle, and in order for her to be able to shoot over the top of the vehicle, she couldn't, because the rules they had set up for her or whatever. So she had to do it, and then she was on her tippy toes. So the most unstable shooting platform ever, and just ding ding ding, just cleans it with her rifle.
And it's funny, right? So that was a PRS match, a precision rifle match, and she's not like us, right? Like if I'm behind that scope, man, I'm like, it's close enough, right? She's not going to do that. She's going to breathe and squeeze, breathe. All right, she's got too much wobble. She's going to fix her position, right? She doesn't have that. I think I can get away with
now.
it. Yeah, she doesn't do that. So, her hit and miss ratio is amazing. Her first precision rifle match ever, she beat me. Mm-hmm. With my gun.
I'm having a hard time processing this right now.
With my gun. Now, and she'll tell you this too. She'll back me up on this. I was running for Congress, and I was distracted. So I'm emailing and texting and all that, and they'd be like, Tony, your turn to shoot. And I would be like, what's the distances? Where are the targets? I missed the stage brief. I was behind the curve. So after the first 3 stages, I realized that she's not just beating me. She's beating some studs, right? This match is really close to the Raider or Camp Lejeune. So the Raiders,
yeah.
The Marine Corps Advanced Sniper Course. Mass guys are all there shooting studs. And dude, she didn't just beat me. She beat some studs.
That's awesome.
Like I said, with my rifle. I think she got 3rd place overall, and I got 4th. So the last 3 stages, I was like, and I buckled down. I was like, I think I missed 1 target. I got my mess together, and but I didn't have enough points to come back and beat her, man. And so it was it kind of hurt my feelings, but at the same time, I was super proud.
Because who taught her?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So we'll see how the sniper comp goes.
That's awesome. How long were you in Afghanistan?
So the first time, right, the first pump, I actually kind of did 2 trips back to back.
Nice.
Because my team was redeploying, and the team that was coming in was a bunch of my friends, dudes I knew, and so I volunteered to help rip them out. And then I just kind of hung out with them. I didn't want to go home.
Yes.
So yeah, man, we got over there in October, and I came home in September. So my first pump was, the 5th group guys they packed their stuff and hauled tail because we were going to the Horn of Africa. Right, everyone thought we were going to Somalia and going to go deal with Al Qaeda there, and so I remember hearing that Iraq was going to be on, and we're like, wait, what? What do you mean we're going to Iraq? We're going to Iraq. What's in Iraq? Why are we fighting in Iraq? They're secular. They don't support terrorism, and they didn't.
Downtown Baghdad used to be a pretty cool place,
dude. It was. I met some South African dudes. And they were mad at us for invading Iraq, man. And because they were talking about all the partying and stuff they were doing in Baghdad, they were freaking They were having a good time, and they were mad at us that we had ruined it. Dude, I had no idea Iraq was like that. I only saw what was on TV like everybody else. Weapons of mass destruction. Dude, I knew that was made up because when we went to go across the border, it was like, oh, yeah, you don't need your chem biosuits. We're like, I thought we were going after weapons of mass destruction. They're supposed to be all over the place across the border. Yeah. It was like, what a scam, dude.
That sucks.
What a scam.
Yeah. That's...
Yeah. You always ask a question, right? And like Americans don't want to believe we can be the bad guy. And in a lot of cases, I know that we have been, right? Like, I mean, everybody's like, Putin's a war criminal. Okay, that might be true. But if we're going to use the criteria that we're using to define war criminal in Putin's case, what's George W. Bush? What's Obama? I mean, we killed estimates of 700,000 civilians in Iraq. For what? What for? I don't know what for. I'm paying. If we were paying $1 a gallon at the pump, at least I'd be like, all right, well, at least we got that. You know, at least it was. I mean, let's face it. There's never been a time on planet Earth that human beings weren't fighting with each other. Yeah. There's never been peace on Earth. Not ever. Not for a single day in human history. We've always been fighting and killing each other over stuff and things. America goes to war, and we don't know we're not bringing stuff and things home. Like we are horrible at being an imperial power, right? We keep expanding and then leaving and not pumping them drive oil and exploiting their resources, right? It's like, oh, we're gonna go give them democracy. Well, it's hard to give democracy to people who will never understand democracy, who have been living under brutality for decades and centuries. You know, like, how are you going to explain the complexities of the representative, democracy, if you want to, the republic that we have? How do you explain that to people who have lived under dictators for the last, 400 years?
Yeah.
Or even further back than that, right? Especially when you're looking at people in the Middle East, like you're going back, but before the Medo-Persians, the Assyrians, like all of those groups, right? You're talking pre the very first empires in the world.
That's where civilization started.
Yeah,
right?
Into the BC.
Samaria.
Yeah, you're going into the BC area,
way back,
right?
into the BC area.
And you're like, hey, we're going to give you democracy, and they're like, yeah. Remember when Rome tried that and we drove them out?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, we don't, because
they're not into it.
Yeah, well, because over here we don't know that history either.
Right. Those folks understand the term "might makes right."
Yeah.
Right, and we're confused, so we're like, hey, let's give them democracy. Yeah, clearly we failed on all those fronts, man. I don't know, man. Freaking, yeah.
When did you start looking at it through that lens?
That's probably a good question. Earlier than I would like to admit, I think.
Okay.
I think I knew better, I also know, so I've said many times that I don't suffer from PTSD, right? At the beginning of the war, some elements and units out there did bad things. Probably pulled the trigger on people that weren't truly combatants, or at least weren't posing direct threats. You had a bunch of young American boys that were scared to death of IEDs sitting behind machine guns. So when that car ran that stop line and they filled it full of bullet holes, we were dropping 500-pound bombs in cities, right? I mean, like right now in Gaza, dude, freaking, if folks knew exactly what Israel was truly doing in Gaza right now, Christian people, people with hearts, not even Christian people, just people who have hearts, man, what's going on in Gaza right now is bad. I mean, they're hurting a lot of innocent people. Like, not all Palestinians support Hamas, right? Yeah. Just like in Iraq, right? Not all of them were Ba'athist, and in Afghanistan, not all of them were Taliban, and certainly very few of them were Al-Qaeda. So when I look at things through that lens, it's like, there's, in this modern age of technology and the weapons that we have that are so surgical, there's hardly any excuse for killing civilians anymore. And that's part of the reason why I've disconnected. I don't want to be part of the argument of, what I just said about what's really going on in Gaza. And if you look at not Fox News, not CNN, you can see the damage that they're doing. And it's heavier handed than it probably should be. Now, again, Hamas, Israel, I fully support their right to exist, right, and to protect themselves, no doubt. But it's hard to justify leveling entire city blocks because Hamas shot a rocket from that street corner. You know?
Yeah,
It's you know what I'm saying? Like we can never justify, and we'll shift back because it's kind of a hot topic, but we'll shift back to Iraq. We can never justify killing all those civilians. There's no justification for it. There's no reason for it. There was never a reason for it.
What's sad, to your point that you said earlier, stuff like this has always happened and it's always going to happen. It's just what's being highlighted right now. There's places that around the world that horrific things are happening
Right
to
now.
innocent civilians.
All the time.
Nobody knows about it
Yep.
because there's nobody can benefit from exposing that. It's
Right.
like, okay, what can, okay, this has happened here, this has happened here, this has happened here. Okay, where are we going to make the most money?
Right.
Oh, over there, cool. We're going to go do that. This over here, it's actually worse. But you know what? We can go make our money over here.
Right. We can send all of our weapons to Ukraine and Israel, and then the military-industrial complex has to make new ones. You know, we got a new sniper rifle, that Mark 22, the Beret, right? Switch barrels, 308, 6.5. Well, Soft's got 308, 6.5, and 300 normal, right? Regular Army's got and 338 normal. Regular Army's supposed to get 308 or has 308 barrels, 300 normal barrels, 338 barrels. They are saying they are forecasting tentatively that you're going to get 300 normal. Pardon me. 300 normal ammo in 2028. So 2 years ago, the contract was awarded for this sniper rifle, and it's not a bad sniper rifle at all. And we're not going to get ammo for it until 2024. However, if you Google Mark 22 right now, Ukraine, you'll find images of Ukrainian soldiers with our Mark 22s and 300 Normas. They have the ammo. Every single 300 Norma round in our inventory that has been produced has been shipped to the Ukraine. We have nothing. Javelins. There's no javelins left in our inventory. All right? And javelins can change the face of a battlefield in a second. You know, me and you can, destroy a tank company.
Yeah.
Right? Me and you just hanging out in the bushes. We don't need armor or freaking. It's a bad state, man. And it's not like I'm some kind of tree hugging hippie now, right? I'm still me, man. Freaking, I don't want to sound like some crazy psychopath, but I enjoyed the war. I enjoy the fight. I enjoy fighting. I always have, right?
I did too. Yeah.
I like the fist fight in junior high. Freaking, I don't mind a good fight. It's exciting. And I always kind of looked at it as, you know what? I wasn't political. I didn't vote in most elections during the war. I just was like, man, I work for whoever the commander in chief is. It's not, I swore an oath, freaking, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, I, probably disconnected myself from that thought process on purpose so I could continue to participate with less load on my conscience.
Got it.
I'm sure a lot of us did that. But as I started coming to more reality, right, I always, I still kind of convinced myself, and it's a truth that, they were fighting for what they believed in.
Yeah.
And so were we. And we met those dudes on the streets of whatever, Yemen, Somalia, Iraq, name it, right? But we met those dudes on the streets and in those mountains and in that desert and fought. And that's respectable, right?
Yeah.
That's the respectable part of war. The warriors do war. The politicians are the ones that turn it into a racket. And that's what's happened with us, man. Our politicians are,
That's why you ran for Congress.
right. Like right now, there's one congressman on Capitol Hill, that I consider to be a good person. Eli Crane.
Oh, Eli Crane.
Eli's the only one that has not sold his soul. The only one.
Eli Crane is a good human. We were at Team
did
3
y'all-
together.
y'all knew each other?
Yeah. We're in buds, Team 3 together. And yeah, just seeing him at a few different events since I've got out and he got out, and he does a lot to help out Mama Lee with her foundation, America's Mighty Warriors, and yeah, he's a good dude. And it's funny we're talking about him. I actually texted him this morning, and I was just like, "Hey man, is there anything you need prayers for?" Because I know, like,
He's surrounded by piranha, dude.
oh my goodness,
I couldn't imagine the pressure he deals with. When he said he would not vote for Kevin McCarthy, he was the only one that didn't. Right? And he said, well, my committee appointment's probably going to be in the janitorial closet. But I promised my constituents I would not vote for Kevin McCarthy.
and
he didn't.
maintained his word.
He held to it.
Yeah.
Now, he is luckily on the, is it Military Affairs Committee or the Veterans Affairs? But he's on either or maybe even both of those, which is exactly where he should be.
Yeah.
There are a handful of other, soft guys. There's an SF colonel. There's a couple of freaking Navy SEAL officers that are not on the Veterans Affairs or the Military Affairs Committee.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, he's on Veteran Affairs, Small Business, and Homeland Security.
Makes
He's
sense.
on those three
It's where
committees.
exactly where he should be.
Those are great places for him.
I also want to see him move over to the Ways and Means Committee because that's where the power's at. And we need a good person, and there are no good people on the freaking Ways and Means Committee. That's a very senior thing. Here's a lot of thing. Well, the thing that folks don't understand. It's not like you get, appointed to the Ways and Means Committee because you're an awesome person. You pay for it, right? So if you look at a new person coming on one of those powerful committees like Ways and Means, before they're appointed, if you look at the donations, right, that congressman's campaign gave a contribution to every other member on that, or every other voting member on that committee, max contribution. Everybody thinks like the campaign funds, like, they can only be used for no. It's an exchange currency between congressmen and women, right? If you were a congressperson, I can give you money, freaking through my campaign account into your campaign account.
What?
Dude, it is insane. That's one thing I learned about running for Congress is how corrupt it is. And Congress, they always keep our focus on the presidential race. It's so we don't pay attention to what they're doing. And man, you want to talk about just sliminess, but that whole campaign fund thing, and Americans don't realize that a congressman's or senators campaign funds, right? They have to come from individuals. Well, that sounds good, doesn't it? Every single one of them has their own PAC, if not more, political action committee, and that's where the corporations can donate unlimited amounts. So if it may have even gone up, but when I was running, you could give me $2,400.
Yeah, that's right.
And your wife could give me $2,400. Your household could give me $5,800 for my command maxed out. So individuals are limited to $2,400. But over here in my PAC, freaking, I could have took a $5 million donation from Pfizer. Yeah, you want to look at, it's not a coincidence. When you look at your congressperson's donors, you can find out why they vote the way they do. So I always tell folks the FEC website, the Federal Election Campaign website, it is so complex you can't find any information there. However, if you go to opensecrets.org, just type in a name, right? Congressperson's name. It can pull up their donors and also who they've donated to for. And then you find out their PAC that supports them, and then look at who the PAC actually donates to. Wow. So me and you can give our congressperson $2,400 each. But if me and you owned a multi-billion-dollar corporation, we can give them as much money as we want in their PAC fund. Like, let that sit in. And when people say, I don't think the average person who says things like, there's no reason to vote anymore, elections are done. It's not always because of the reason they think. It's because of that, right? Our government is not run by us anymore. It's not run by our Congress people. They are puppets to their donors.
Is there any fixing it?
I don't know.
That was a no. You think there's any fixing it legitimately? without
the way the current system is set up.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
That's why I have regressed into a state of isolationism.
Yeah. Okay.
Dude, I didn't know that former President Trump had been found guilty. I didn't even know he was going to court last week, much less found guilty until 2 days after.
Yeah.
After running for Congress, I made a decision. I was like, you know what? If the regular American person isn't going to get involved, I'm not going to spend the last couple of decades of my life freaking fighting for something that isn't winnable. It isn't fixable. And I think it is, but it will require all the good Americans to change some priorities. Good Americans take their kids to school. Good Americans take their kids to soccer practice. Good Americans take their kids to BJJ practice, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to the local GOP meeting. They're not going to, right?
Yeah, because our lives are too busy, and it's just, and it makes it to where that's not a priority.
Right. So we're expecting these representatives to do it for us. Well, they're not representatives of us. They are pawns and puppets for corporations. And again, go to opensecrets.org and type in your congressman's name, and you can find out who pays him or her. Right? And the average American won't even take time to do what I just said.
I think part of it is they won't take the time to do it. And do you think part of it is like, well, if I don't know, then I can't be upset?
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at in life, right? I have made a conscious decision, and there are people out there that are like, but Tony, we need you. Bro, I've given my entire adult life to this nation, man. I'm taking some time for myself.
Yeah, I mean, you legitimately, you have given so much to our nation. And, you saw firsthand when you ran, it was an unwinnable fight for you at that moment.
So I was initially running, so North Carolina's districts were being contested in court. For the longest time, the Republicans were always like, gerrymandering. The Democrats are rigging the districts, around, the populations. Bro, if you look at the districts in any state, it's like, and then this one little piece of the district goes over and grabs this one community, right? And it's gerrymandering, and it should be illegal, right? And, actually, it is illegal.
It is illegal,
but there's always loopholes. I mean, when the criminals are the ones writing the laws, they write them to suit themselves. Well, so my district included Cumberland County, Fayetteville, Fort Bragg. I was pretty happy about that. The county I live in, Sampson, rural, conservative, farming. And then freaking Harnett County, which is even more rural. And then Johnson County, which is a little closer to Raleigh and has some pockets of liberalism. I was doing great. I was raising money. Everything was cool. Last minute, North Carolina Supreme Court, in a very unconstitutional manner, North Carolina Constitution, said that the districts are now null and void, and they drew new districts. Well, in the North Carolina Constitution, it clearly states the General Assembly draws the districts and votes on them. They sent it to the Supreme Court. The Republicans in the General Assembly sent it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, yeah, it's definitely unconstitutional, but y'all's election is like in 7 weeks, so it's a little late. Wait, what? So basically, as we speak right now, every congressman in North Carolina, for North Carolina, U.S. congressperson, is unconstitutionally elected. You ever heard about it? Of course you hadn't. Who's suing? Well, you know who should be suing? If it was the other way around, you know who would be suing?
Oh.
Freaking Soros and all these other liberal billionaires. Where are the conservative billionaires funding stuff? They're not. Because conservative minds their own business, right? They donate to churches. They're not donating to all the things that your liberal big money folks are, right? So that's why we're losing. A, we won't take time off from our lives and our work and raising our kids, which are our responsibilities. But also the richest among the conservatives aren't doing the same thing the liberals are, funding all of the activism, right? Why can these liberal folks go out and protest? They're getting paid. So where's the conservative billionaires paying young conservative people to go raise heck and set things on fire and stuff? No, and I'm not advocating that. I think that, I mean, obviously that's animalistic behavior.
Yes.
You know, I'm like, hey man, if we're gonna go tussle, it should be a straight up, you know, like, hey man, let's an honorable fight. That setting things on fire and looting and all that kind of stuff. Come on, man, that's just so animal. But yeah, man, the current state, man, is it fixable the way it is? Yes, but it would require 70% of good Americans. I don't care if you're conservative, Republican, whatever, just good people, right? Christian, maybe, right?
Yeah.
I definitely think that there are good people that aren't Christian.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to be a Christian to be a good person, right? Now we can, whether or not they're getting in
you're
heaven or not, it's a whole different story.
Right.
Right. But here they're doing good. They're raising their families. I have a very dear friend of mine who is, he's a confused atheist. He was my liberal friend, we all have that one liberal friend, you know, who's intelligent, and he appreciated me for my counter views to his. Well, now he's actually shifting towards conservatism. He's a father of 3, freaking.
Oh.
He's having to work and provide, and he's seeing things the way they are. So I think at some point, he's probably actually at some point, I'm predicting that he actually takes the faith. I think it's coming. I think it's part of the progression of things as people mature. Freaking, they become at least more wise. I don't know if they get smarter or not. I would like to think I'm getting more wise. I don't know that I'm getting smarter.
In February of 2022, I went to a men's ministry event called Pursuit for Truth, and it was incredible. For me, it was just this complete game changer, eye opener of what I need to be doing as a Christian man, and pursuing a closer relationship to God, and, you know, focusing on my marriage, and you know, leading my wife and leading my kids, and just really getting rid of a lot of stuff that I've been holding on to. And since I've gone back, since then I've gone back and helped serve at the events, and I get so much out of that. Like, it's been really cool to see different, you know, men go through with just legitimate trauma, and just be able to come out of it like just healed and refreshed, and not completely healed, because I don't think, you know, that's a long pursuit. That's a pursuit that takes a while, you know.
You always have scars.
Yes, 100%. But there's been a few guys that have gone that were atheists and agnostic, but they went because they knew they were missing something, or they trusted somebody that was like, hey, just
try it.
Just, hey, come check it out. Just see if this God thing is real. And then they
what's
end up getting saved and baptized, and it's just incredible.
What's that old saying? Like, all right, check it out. Let's say, you know, you're talking to your atheist friends. Like, let's say you're right. No harm, no foul on my end.
Yeah.
Let's say you're wrong.
Yeah, we're talking eternity, bro.
Right. So, which side you want to hedge on there, buddy? You know, if you want to hedge on something, which one you want to go to? You know,
and you've had some incredible moments where there is zero denying God's hand in your safety and the ability that we're sitting across from each other. Like, zero denying that God was there, and just you know. And so that's the other thing, is like, there's not one human in the world that could ever convince me that I have not felt the presence of God. I have legitimately felt the presence of God multiple times. I have felt and seen myself wrapped in protection from angels, right? Where, like, somebody shooting a machine gun at me and not one round, just think like the story when you were in traffic and your buddy kind of like looks up and there's an AK right by your window, and like stuff like that. It's incredible.
You know, if it wasn't for armored cars, whew.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, dude, that's crazy. Or what about do you want to share the story you shared earlier where you were in a vehicle, you got in a gunfight in a car?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to.
Yeah, man, I had a dude freaking pull his gun on me in the car I was driving. And, freaking, I, of course, tried to trap his pistol. And, was also trying to fight, give him an elbow, take his gun, this and that. And ultimately just reached across, drew my pistol upside down, and pulled the trigger with my pinky.
kind of comical at that point because I was clearly not focused on driving the vehicle anymore. And freaking next thing I know, I was in the back seat, dazed and confused. We had crashed and bowling pinned a bunch of Opals and Corollas and other small Iraqi vehicles parked along the side of the road. We were driving a 7,000-8,000 pound armored sedan, and the airbags went off and blew me into the back seat. Because I was kind of halfway on top of him anyway, and kind of so therefore feet still in the driver's side compartment or whatever. But it blew me in the back seat. Obviously, we came to a stop. I was a little dazed and confused, and I hopped up, and the fight was over. Freaking, it was that kind of stuff. Like, how do you train for that? We never, now freaking, we train that kind of stuff, but we were learning. The learning curve was so tight back then. It was like freaking, I never thought once about trying to defend myself from an attacker in a vehicle.
No. I mean, you might daydream about that, but you never thought it was going to be something you should train for.
And so, I was doing some singleton stuff, for the project I was working on. I was pretty unsupervised. I could do all kinds of stuff. And so I could bebop around Iraq a lot by myself. And,
that's unreal.
Yeah. And, I drove a taxi around freaking. It was kind of funny because people would like get in. I'm like, where are you going? And then they would like, and get out. One time I picked up a dude just outside of north of Mosul, headed towards Dahut. Dude got in. And I was like, hey, what's up? And he's like, what are you doing? What in the world are you doing? Plain British English. So he was a Kurd who had been raised and studied in Britain his whole life. He was older than me. At that time I was young 30s. He was pushing 50 for sure. And very articulate, very educated. And he was like, what are you doing driving a taxi in Iraq? And I actually finally got my PP slapped for that one because it was basically like, all right, man, you pretty much, careful, you're compromising us rolling around in low-profile vehicles.
Yeah.
And you get bored, And so I gave him a ride to Dahut. We talked the whole way there. And it was an interesting thing. And if people don't know the difference between Iraqi Arabs and Iraqi Kurds, they're not even the same race of people. Kurds are Persian. They're related to Persians. Sahal-ad-Din, the great Persian ruler, was a Kurd, not an Iranian Persian. A lot of Kurds are Christian. Many Kurds are Christian.
Assyrian Christians, right? Yeah.
Assyrian Christian, and then there's Yazidi, Old Testament religion, or Old Testament era religion, and plenty of those still there. Ancient religions. Of course, like Mosul was. Why am I having a hard time thinking this? Freaking the old city in Mosul. What am I feeling like a dummy all of a sudden?
The oldest city ever, right?
Oldest occupied
city. I went
ever.
there.
Yeah, the old castles.
Yes.
Right? Nineveh. Jeez, Nineveh. Yeah.
I was trying to
I don't know why I had an Afghanistan province in my head. So the city of Nineveh is Mosul, and the oldest inhabited city on the planet used to be. ISIS leveled it and killed everyone. Those people, the inhabitants of Nineveh, were a prehistoric race. Genetics only of themselves. ISIS murdered every one of them. 2014, 2015. Leveled the place. We never went into old Nineveh. Right? It was off limits. I would have loved to gone in there and toured it.
Yeah.
And seen it. Right? Jonah's tomb is right next to it. The big pyramid in Mosul is Jonah's tomb, as in Jonah and the whale. Crazy, right? I mean, it's the Euphrates and the Tigris, man. Like, that's so much of the Bible is in that region. Amazing stuff, amazing, and so anyway, I kind of digress, but yeah, man, the old city of Nineveh was an amazing thing to look at just driving by. I always really wanted to go in there and check it out.
Oh, that would have been.
But anyway, yeah, man, that was a interesting tussle. I got in a couple different little tussles working by myself. And I tell people a lot of times that's why I can at least kind of relate to the single person, self-defense role. I can kind of talk to cops a little bit better, freaking, because at least I know what it's like to be in a fight by myself.
I mean, you have a pretty legitimate, this is what we create movies around story of you by yourself. Just correct?
I had a long afternoon.
Now's not
one
the
day.
time to be humble. You can be confident in saying yes. And to the point where the agency, you guys started teaching one-man entrances and clearances and one-man tactics because of what happened to you that afternoon.
And it wasn't just me. It was other instances, right? Like, why did we get rid of the 45? Freaking, because it was failing. There was a need for the single-person CQB development, and we didn't know. It was like, and because back then it was like, you have to have 2 to go in a room.
What
no
year
matter
was
what.
this again?
So that incident that you're referring to was 2011. So we were already doing some type of stuff, right? But there was no organization to it. There was no testing of it. So we went back and started testing it, simunitions against each other and stuff like that.
Those are really uncomfortable.
Yeah. And so, we had to test it and vet it and then implement it. That afternoon in 2011, that was a long afternoon, even though it wasn't as long as you would think. But imagine maxing out your heart rate for 90 minutes. Imagine the hardest CrossFit workout you ever did, and it lasted 90 minutes. Man, I was so sore the next day. I was so sore.
You also, didn't you get shot in the back?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing that story?
Nah, not at all. So me and one of my teammates were doing a surveillance recce thing. So we were not slick, but we were in light armor, not carrying much equipment, in a BMW sedan, and we got made. We got compromised, and I was like, "Ooh, we're in the hornet's nest. Let's get out of here. This is way bad. Oh, this is bad. Oh, hurry up, let's go." And so as we pulled out of that neighborhood and hit a more major strip, I gave it gas and was heading out. Sure enough, man, this dude ran out in front of us and launched an RPG, hit us right in the freaking grill. And it was funny because I can still remember freaking swerving, and it was as if that RPG swerved right into us. Like, I was just like, so it went off freaking, and we hopped up on the median and hit one of the big light poles, one of those big, heavy steel light poles, big thing. And
those
just,
things are huge there.
Yeah, we didn't even bend it. I'm not even sure we wiggled it. And of course I ate the steering wheel pretty hard. So I was a little dazed and confused. And my buddy was like, hey, get up. We got to go, man. And I was like, what? And I'm looking at him and kind of shake it off and whack on that armored car, man, from the very distinguishable freaking rounds, rounds hitting an armored car. It's a lot louder inside than a lot of people think. And I was like, okay. And he's like, hey, we're moving. Hey, let's evac. We're gonna go across the street to right there, right? That was the old thing. Like, hey, when you're breaking out of a vehicle, freaking, we're gonna hard point right there. That door right there. And he described it, right? It was a little storefront. Dude, there's traffic, right? This is a pretty busy street in Mosul, man. There's traffic. And freaking, I'm like, okay, ready, freaking, let's go. Pop the door. And, basically the SOP is if the car was facing this way, he's going to pop the door and go around the trunk, right? Freaking, because he needs to be quick. I'm going to go around my door and set up on the hood. So he has a clear place to come around that trunk. I got to the hood and started returning fire. There was very clear targets just there on the sidewalk shooting at us. And it's kind of funny because they were so ballsy, man. They didn't really realize, they didn't know who we were. They just knew we were, white people. And so they're shooting, and they don't really use their sights a lot, so that's always good for us. Anyway, man, freaking, as I'm breaking rounds, I realized, man, he's still in the car, and I'm like, looking, and how armored glass, you can't really see through it at an angle. It gets all that rainbowy looking refraction or whatever. And I'm looking, and I kind of step back, and I can see through the V, and I can see his his feet are still in the car. And I'm like, oh. I mean, I knew, I was like, dang. So I ran around the car and grabbed him. And as I was running around the back of the car, I'm like, just grabbed him by his shoulder strap. and I'm dragging him. And then as I drag him around the tail end of the car, I kind of cut the corner short, and his foot hung on the muffler. And so, like, as he snagged, I slipped and fell. So now he's kind of laying on me. And that's when I knew for sure he was expired, man. I knew he was dead. And so the round, as soon as he opened the door, apparently, like, it went through him, through his body armor sideways, and hit me in my back plate. And I was like, okay, well, at this point now I'm like, uh-oh. You know, like, and I mean, at this point I wasn't even worried. I was just like, you know what, this will be over soon. Freaking, my buds will be here in a minute. Everything will be fine. So I start trying to pull him across. I'm like sitting in the street. And so I re-engage from a seated position with him in my lap. And so I get up and start moving out. And, you know, the median was like, the median was like 12 inches concrete, right? So I had to pull him over that. And as I was, you know, hustling backwards or whatever, freaking, once I got to the sidewalk, I tripped and fell again. And so now I'm sitting on the sidewalk. Well, he had the, was it Mark 46 or 48 with this 5.56?
Mark 46.
The 46 is 5.56. So we had those things.
Yeah.
Great little machine guns.
Oh, yeah.
In the Army, it's called a saw.
Yep. Yeah.
The
Same
NAVSpec
thing. Yeah.
is a Mark, right? They just don't have the magazines. And they work. Those guns work.
And
man.
it carries a box of 200 rounds, or they call it a little sack.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it has like 100 rounds, right?
You know what I used to do with them, man? It's kind of cool. I used to take the 200 round drums and cut them, right? And then duct tape them, and they'd fit in mag pouches.
Yep.
That's what I would do when I was running that thing. Well, anyway, he had it, you know, slung. So I picked it up and just, dude, I like dumped almost a 200 round drum sitting right there on the sidewalk, just figure eighting, just, you know, letting him have it, right, heating up that barrel. And so I got my mess together, got up and drug him into the store, and like it was a little storefront, freaking like dishes and stuff like that, little decorative dishes and things like that, trinkets and everything. And so I returned some fire from the door once I got him inside.
Are there people inside that store?
Yeah, but they had moved into the back,
Okay.
and were leaving. They knew people were starting to leave. But traffic's like driving by. It's like every day in Iraq, you know. It's just another gunfight. And you know, of course, the bad guys on the other side of the street didn't care. They're shooting through vehicles and stuff. You know, we try not to do that kind of thing. And yeah, man. So I start getting his stuff off of him. Right. I took his frags. I took his PDMs. I took his pistol mags, and of course his saw. Mark 46. And I rolled him up in the carpet and I pulled him up underneath the stairs. You know, I was like, hey man, I'll come back for you. You know what I mean? I can't drag you. I've got to go.
Yeah.
And you know, that was just like that weird reality, man. Like wasn't disrespecting him. I was, you know, trying to hide him so we could come back and get him.
You're respecting him and his family by keeping him hidden.
Right. I wasn't going to leave him on the street. You know?
So what was the thought process for that? Like, I'm not trying to pry and be rude, but I'm intrigued by your ability in this situation. You're being shot at. You're shooting. You know, you're literally dragging one of your very close friends and your teammate who is dead, and you're like, okay, I've got to get all of his ammo. Was there anything that ever just came from training that, you know, where they're like, hey, you know, self-preservation, you got to take care of yourself in certain times, or you just knew you knew?
You know what, man?
I will say Green Berets are, you know, you guys are very, I mean, and SEALs are as well, but very, very talented in outside the box thinking.
I don't know. I was thinking very much. I was freaking out quite a bit. I definitely had that heart rate freaking was pegged. I mean, we're trying to get his stuff and I'm shaking and I'm panicked, you know. I knew I was in a bad situation, right? Like I knew. But at the same time, now I'm in the building and I can see across the street and see down the alley and they're still not sure. They're not coming across the street. They're like sitting in a couple of rounds, man. So, you know, it's talking like 150 meters. I felt mostly safe, but I'm panicking at the same time, right? Like, you know. And of course, you know, Bud's sitting there freaking, you know, dead. Yeah, man, I decided, okay, you know what? Hey, man, I got a call for help. Not a big deal. Crap. Left my phone in the car. And, you know, this is where I try to tell people, right? Like, I have no problems telling people what I did wrong that day. And so there was a lot of lessons learned that day, some AARs. So, you know, you have that little Velcro piece on your body armor.
Yeah.
I would take my cell phone and just slap it on there. I had a piece of Velcro on the cell phone. We had Velcro on the dash for all that kind of stuff. For whatever reason, I put my cell phone on the dash. I don't know why, right? It's not where it goes while you're in the car. It goes here. So I screwed that up. So no cell phone. I'm like, whatever, got my radio. I just need to get outside where I got line of sight, man. I'll be able to get an Army unit. Probably might even be able to hit our antenna. There's got to be a helicopter in the sky. You know, I got nets. I can call people. So I worked my way. I went up the stairs, figured out how to get up on top of the roof, and it was a flat roof, no knee wall. So I'm up there, pull my VS-17 panel out, orange emergency panel, bright orange, blaze orange panel. And I remember the wind was blowing pretty good that day, so like I put my knee on it. And so I'm messing with my radio, and I'm like, you know, hey, you guys, this is me, over. Nothing. And, you know, I was kind of worried that maybe I was just, you know, unable to hear, but I was like, you know, I can hear everything else just fine, you know, because I wasn't wearing hearing protection, and I'd just gone, you know, through, 200 or so rounds. And I was like, all right, you know. Well, I'm like, all right, well, I need to switch channels and get on the Army net. Freaking, they'll hear me. And when I opened my radio, it was in like one of those little fold-out patches. This is, you know, an embedder 148. And I opened it, and it was like, chick, 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 chick. It had taken a round. It was dead. And here's the funny thing. That embedder took an AK round and stopped it. It didn't hit my plate. It's still in the radio. I still have the plate carrier. I still have the plates. I still have the radio. And clear as day, man. You can tell. And when at this angle, so had it passed through, it probably wouldn't have hit my plate. Could have easily hit my arm.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah. God is good.
There you go, right? So they figured out I was on the roof, man, and started shooting at me, and I got nowhere to hide. And I remember that the first round I saw skipped off the roof in front of me, probably 4 foot in front of me. I was like, whoa. Uh-oh, they know where I'm at, you know? So, I'm out of here. So, on the back of the building, as I climbed up, I went up the stairs on the second floor and then went out on this little pavilion thing, and then I climbed up a ladder. And I didn't make a complete mental note of how the building was built. So, I'm 2 stories above. In my head, that first story was all the way across the back of the building. It was not. It stopped about 3/4 away. So I took off running, thinking I was going to jump off that building and land on that first story. I missed it. It went all the way to the street. I smashed into the ground, and it hurt, man. It hurt a lot. I mean, you're talking what? You know, if it's 8 foot to the ceiling, another foot of concrete, another 8 foot, you know, so I probably jumped off of, you know, anywhere from 16 to 20 feet. And, dude, I smashed into the ground, and it was like feet face. And I was like, ugh. Just kind of shook it off. I was like, wow. I remember sitting there going, dude, like, you got to get up, man. And as I sat up, I'm in this little tiny alleyway, like most vehicles wouldn't even get down. It was more like a bicycle alleyway, it was small. But a bigger little side street over here, all of a sudden a dude ran by, and I was like, uh-oh, time to get up. Like, okay, they're on me now, He just ran by. The next dude ran by and like kind of saw me out of the corner of his eye and went around the corner, and like I heard him hitting the brakes, and I was like, okay. So I moved to the corner, man, and as I went to step around the corner, he ran around the corner and ran right into my muzzle. And so went hot on him.
Yeah.
His buddy is now down the street a little bit and has kind of turned around to see what's going on, so I let him have it. Spun around. There was a couple dudes like standing there scared. These are young dudes, man, young guys. And they're like looking, and they're like, oh, I don't know. And I remember a couple of those guys backed off. I like sent a couple rounds that way, ran back the opposite direction, and went down the next side street. And at this point, I'm like, okay, things are bad. I got no way to talk to anybody. Nobody knows where I'm at. Right?
Yeah, and like nobody even knows this is happening.
No. Huh? So I came up with this brilliant plan. Go to the river.
I'm only a couple 100 meters from the river. If I can get to the river,
You can swim, they
right?
can't, right?
Haji can't swim, man.
Haji can't swim.
So I'm like, if I can get to the river, I'll swim south to where I'm clear of it. Freaking get under the first bridge, pop up. It's a freaking half-mile walk to the front gate of the airbase. I'll be fine. This is going to work. Yeah, no, that's not exactly how things work because the Hornet's Nest didn't know exactly where it's at. So these guys were running, chasing me around. They're looking for me. And so I had to get off the street and kind of work my way through each building. And I was getting pretty light on ammo at all at this point, right? I was, at first it was like, freaking, just suppressive fire and all that stuff. Man, I was only carrying 5 total magazines, 1 on the gun and 4 on me.
Yeah.
Two extendo pistol mags, 1 in my Glock and 1 on me. It was at the point, man, where when I would go inside, I'd pull my pistol out. I was getting light. I was like, you have to conserve your rifle. I mean, you need that for outside. I kind of got hemmed up in on the next block, so that was the second block. The third block, I got hemmed up in this one structure and went up some stairs, and these guys came right in behind me. So, well, actually, in the main door way back when, freaking, this is kind of funny because this is when I heard it. The PDMs, freaking pursuit deterrent munitions. It's like a little mine, right? And you pull the pin, and it launches all these little tripwires. Well, if you kick one of those tripwires, freaking, it's like a bouncing Betty, but what it is on the inside of it, there's a sphere, and the propellant, no matter which way you drop it on the ground, it's a liquid propellant. Goes to the bottom because of gravity, and so when it ignites, it hits that propellant, pops it up in the air 6-8 feet, and then it blows up. And it's not a big explosion. It's not catastrophic. Like if one of them went off right here with us, we'd be all messed up, but it probably wouldn't kill us. It's a pursuit deterrent munition, and I had popped one. I actually popped his in that first building. And so when they came in there, so as I started to go in this building in the next little block over, freaking, I heard it go off, and I was like, ha ha, So it was like it kind of warmed my heart for a moment, right? I was like, got him. And so in that doorway, I tossed another one. That second one, it reminded me, and so I go up the stairwell, man, and these guys came in the back side of the house as I'm going up the stairwell, so I can hear them coming in behind me. And so I tossed a frag out, freaking, I was like, and so when that thing went off, I was still in the stairwell. So I threw a frag grenade in the same room I was in. And it rocked my world. I was like, ooh, that was a little more powerful than I thought it was. And it was just because I, was the way I couldn't see it when it went off, but it reflected off the wall in front of me and smacked me pretty hard. I was like, ooh, that was a pretty good one. Yeah, man. So went upstairs, went around that one, jumped off that little building, not from the second story. Nice little easy jump, and started progressing, man. And it was pretty constant, freaking little tick. And I finally got out of the last building and into this little grassy area, freaking, and then into the marsh, freaking. And when I hit the marsh, man, one of those Kiowas, the conventional army little birds, came screaming down that marshy area, and I could see him coming, and I was like, please don't shoot me.
Oh my gosh.
Please don't shoot me. I don't have my VS-17 panel. I left that on top of the building as well. And I'm not wearing an army top. I'm in full civilian clothes, man, and I'm just like waving like, please God, don't shoot me. That dude flared right on top of me. And
those pilots are incredible.
Oh, dude.
Dakota Meyer talked about that in his book, and it's just like unreal,
dude. I'll tell you straight up, man. Don't get me wrong, task force guys are amazing, but they don't want to fly in the daytime and stuff like that. Best helicopter pilots I've flown with are like Mississippi National Guard guys. Freaking, they're like 65 years old, fairly certain they drink beer when they fly, like Vietnam veteran type dudes. Like this dude was flying a Huey in the late 60s in Nam, and now he's flying a CH-47, right? Like, he's a grandfather, like I said, drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon, running around.
But they show up.
They don't care, man. Those dudes were wild. And so these guys, the Kiowa guys are out of Fort Hood, they're Cav guys. And man, he definitely saved my life, freaking.
Shout out to those guys, man.
Yeah, man, he saved my life that day.
And it's funny, a lot of guys don't know the 50 cals they have on the side, they're cranked up.
Yeah.
Like the ones on the trucks, like do. Those things on the helicopters are like, yeah. So they don't last long either, and they only carry like 2 or 3 2.75 rockets, 2.75 inch rockets, 50 cal on one side, a little 2 or 3 rockets, maybe it's 3. He fired some, took off. His partner rolled in. They both were shooting rockets into that little neighborhood and stuff. Freaking Apaches showed up. And at that time, Apaches scared everyone. Hell, Apache scared me.
Apaches on station?
Yeah.
Let's go.
They come dipping in, man. And, it's a flying tank. And anyway, long story short, Ranger Regiment guys come peeling around the corner in their strikers. And I was like, I just took a knee. I was so exhausted. Those dudes rolled up, freaking dropped that tailgate on the striker, man. And they come out, and I just kind of like collapsed and just drugged me in there. I was so
How dehydrated were you?
Very.
Yeah.
So much so that I drank water out of a freaking faucet in Iraqi home.
Oh,
Yeah, I was. You can imagine what.
How sick did you get?
Not that bad, actually, and I don't know how much of it was just exhaustion and exertion. But yeah, I had the poops. I was kind of sick the next day, but man, I was so sore, and I was in really good shape. I mean, that was, the height of some of the craziest fitness that I had. At least for that type of work, very much into the CrossFit type stuff, and I was pretty strong and fast, and I was so sore the next day, man. I mean, everything hurt, everything from exertion, and it was I always tell people, like, you know what, like when you're hitting a building on direct action, you've got the initiative, right? You're confident. Dude, I was behind the curve the entire time, right? I was freaking out the whole time, whether as cool as I might have been, my body was freaking out, so I was so sore the next day.
How many bodies did they go collect?
So the Iraqi police said 26. And of course the helicopters could have been partly, responsible for some of them. I know I engaged more than 26 people that day. Yeah. It was a hornet's nest, man. I had my own little crazy fight.
What do you think? Probably 40, 50 guys you engaged? Because when you say Iraqi police picked up that many, I'm like, how many were dragged off? How many,
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, and who will ever know? I mean, I definitely lost count of how many people I put my EOTech on. I wasn't counting at one point.
I'm not laughing at. I'm just like this is why the opening statement, and I've known about this story, and I wanted our listeners to hear it from you, because it's legitimately a reason why you're one of my heroes. Like, I hear this story again, and I've heard it multiple times, and I'm trying not to get emotional, because you hear this and you're like, it's incredible. And God's hand, His grace, His protection over
one
you.
thing after another. One thing after another that should have killed me that day.
And you only had a handful of rounds left, correct?
14 5.56 and 9 9mm rounds. I threw all my frag grenades, all 3 of my frag grenades, my PDM, and both of his and his PDM. It was a test, man. It was no doubt a test, and like it was weird, man. Because like, I was on the rev limiter, but not mentally. Physically, definitely, right? Like it was just, and it was like one struggle event after the next. Like everything was difficult. Like trying to call somebody on the radio. Like just trying to figure out, that my radio's been shot. I didn't know. Leaving my VS-17 panel, my cell phone's in the car. One dumb mistake after the next. But I mean, it was the first time I'd ever been in that type of situation. So it was full on survival mode.
So you were in really good shape. Do you think that this incident or event in your life is something that maybe consciously and subconsciously you go back to in regards to the driving force of what keeps you so physically fit and healthy? Sure. I mean, you've done 200 mile plus races. I mean, you did a workout where all in one day, all back to back. He deadlifted 600 pounds, squatted 600 pounds, and then ran a mile in sub 6 because people said it couldn't be done. He's like, cool, I'll do it. Programmed his training trained, did that stuff. Is that something you kind of like fall back to? Like,
I tell people all the time that, yes, I've had numerous incidents in my career that the one thing that I know that saved my life was my physical fitness. There's, just numerous incidents where, like, if I had not had such a high level of physical fitness, I would have failed and been killed.
Yeah. I love sorry.
Yeah. So definitely.
Yeah.
Now the 666 challenge and the 200 miles races, the ultra marathons, that's kind of exceeding any needed level of fitness that we will ever need for our job. Right. I can now look back and say that some of those crazy physical fitness challenges were probably a way of me punishing myself.
Okay.
Right. There's that old saying, like an ultramarathon, your ultramarathoners are either running from something or to something. It's probably a little bit of both for me. I was at that point. I've never had like an angry phase, really. It was more of a, like, man, this just sucks, man. Like, understanding that the war was, the war in Iraq was a sham, and then the extended war in Afghanistan, a sham, right? Like, it just drug it on for what? So a handful of very rich people could get more rich, whatever. That realization started weighing on me at some point, and while I can say with clear conscious honesty, whatever you want to say, that I never suffered from PTSD, right? I didn't have a depression phase. I didn't have a real transition from military life to civilian life because my civilian job was so military. And then I started the gym, but I was also a contractor, so I was still doing that. So my transition to civilian life wasn't as abrupt as many service members. So I never had that. I never had to deal with that. I never had to go through all that mess. If anything, my transition was awesome. I went from, E7 pay to contractor pay. Woohoo! I'm like rich. Thought we were rich. Yeah, those, especially the 200s and that whole hitting the 600s, it was rough on me. But like it was at a point where I feel like I think the training, I could feel pain. At that point I was just numb. I was just numb, man. So many lost friends. Yeah. Wow. I think I was just numb and I could feel pain. And it was better than feeling nothing. But, if you asked me, why are you trying to run a 200-mile race? My answer would have been just to see if I can. Probably wasn't true. Right? I am an accomplishment-based type person, right? There's no doubt in my mind. I find, like, I had to talk to my therapist, right? Yeah, man, I am an accomplishment-based person, right? I find value, self-value in accomplishments. I need a goal at all times. Yeah. I finally figured out how not to be that way. I'm finally maturing emotionally and intelligently about a lot of that stuff and sorted it out. I was able to let my buddies go. It wasn't PTSD. Well, it was PTSD, but it wasn't like bad dreams PTSD. I had survivor's guilt. Yeah. More of it than I was willing to admit. That afternoon, man, I was the team leader, and I based my entire belief system of leadership around that one sentence in the Ranger Handbook. The leader is responsible for everything that does and does not happen. Yeah. So my psyche my subconscious could not accept the fact that I didn't have some type of responsibility in having my teammates be killed in combat. It wasn't my fault in none of the cases, in any of the cases, right? So when I got blown up in 2009, the other three dudes in the vehicle died. Dude, we happened to get stopped in traffic next to an IED en route to hitting a target. Right? They didn't know we were coming. The IED was not built for us. It was built for a striker truck. We were in a freaking sedan. And so I had two dudes get hit on a direct action thing. And, again, like we AAR'd it, and there was nothing I could have done, man. Like, we get shot sometimes, we get killed in combat, right?
The enemy gets a vote.
That's right.
I mean,
you know, the bad guys have good days too. And so, but still, no matter what my rational mind could analyze and assess in those incidents, my subconscious or my emotional mind, I don't know, whatever part of my brain still felt responsible, some type of responsibility. So, hence survivor guilt. I was able to put all that kind of stuff together and figure some stuff out with the help of, I did a plant medicine, Ibogaine, a very powerful psychedelic. You know, I don't think, rephrase, I know for a fact, right, that God did not put us here without all the medicines that we needed to be healthy, right? Now, don't get me wrong, in the last 100 years, we've created a lot of diseases that God never saw coming. You know, like, we've exceeded our natural capacity. But as far as the diseases and the things that God knew existed, right? There's no doubt in my mind he created tabernacle iboga, the plant Ibogaine comes from. There's no doubt in my mind God created mushrooms. God created marijuana, right? And when used properly, they have very, very significant medicinal effects. And we know that to be true. But we also have these conflicts in America, like big pharmaceutical companies who can't profit off of God's medicines. So yeah, man, I heard from a friend of mine, I was having a really rough time with headaches from my TBI. Like I said, got blown up pretty bad in 2009, in a coma, et cetera, et cetera. So bad that, like, I had to learn to walk and talk again. I had to go to speech therapy. I couldn't talk. I was left-handed. I guess I am left-handed. I had to switch to being a right-handed person because my left side didn't work. Couldn't trust this hand not to just do this. Well, that's not a cool thing if you're holding a Glock, you know? So I switched to being right-handed. I had to switch my eyes to right eye dominance. My left eye is still dominant. I am genetically a left-handed person. I can't ever overcome that. But I taught myself to do everything right-handed. It was a process. Went through all that kind of stuff, man. And, like, anyway, I really felt like I was okay. And I would tell people I don't suffer from PTSD. But I choose my words wisely, right? I didn't suffer from it. In other words, I wasn't suffering from it daily. Of course, it affected me. On, you know, every April, freaking, you know, I mourn the loss of Ben Bittner, my brother, my closest bud ever. And, you know, bad guys got him, freaking, and, you know, probably toted some survivor's guilt from that, you know, and all the other brothers that we've had get killed or commit suicide.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, my buddy came back from doing Ibogaine, and he was like telling me about how amazing it was, the visions he saw and the feelings and the experience. And this dude had, this fellow, man, he had a rough childhood, pretty rough time in the military, friends, you know, getting killed, et cetera, same stuff, but a really rough childhood. And there's no doubt in my mind that childhood trauma and injuries are much harder to get over than adult. It just becomes part of their psyche. Yeah. Long story short, he was telling me about how awesome it was. And then he said, and bro, my headaches are gone. My headaches from freaking my ID getting blown up, my TBA, my headache's gone. And I went, wait, what? Say that again? Okay. I need a phone number. How do I apply? I don't care. I had never even heard of Ibogaine before that, right? But at that point, I didn't care, man. I was having a very bad time with headaches. I was getting worse. I thought I either had early onset dementia or it was Alzheimer's. I was getting dumber by the day, and I was aware of it, right? Like, I don't wake up a genius necessarily, right? But I'm not a complete idiot.
Yeah.
You know?
You're a very, very intelligent human.
Well, I was aware that I was getting dumber. I mean, my short-term memory, man, freaking, it was non-existent. Like, what we talked about 5 minutes ago, I would have already forgotten. I was, you know, put my wallet in a dog food container. Why? I don't know how. I don't remember putting it in there. Why would I put it in there? It doesn't make sense. Like, I was doing things that didn't make sense. And you heard me this weekend. You were saying, I need things to make sense. So it was messing with me terribly. And so when he said it helped with his headaches, and he's like, man, my brain, I just feel freaking like I'm back. So I went and did Ibogaine, and
Yeah, man, I hadn't had a headache since.
That's incredible.
And it did show me that I was toting around some PTSD. And what it showed me was, we all use that analogy that we put our bad things in boxes and compartmentalize them and put them on a shelf and freaking, no, that's not, it showed me how I had a different approach. I had a closet at the end of the hall, and I would open it real quick and throw some stuff in there and shut the door. But it was just a pile of mess in there. It was not organized. It was not compartmentalized. It was just a closet full of junk, of a mess that was in my head. Yeah, man. So in regards to my buddies, I saw them in the visions. And at one point, the medicine said to me, the voice said to me, like, just let them go. They're okay. One of the visions I saw, so I've done Ibogaine twice now. I did it in January again. My first experience, my visions were pretty amazing. The visions on Ibogaine, at least the ones I had, were very high definition, like exponentially more high definition than what you see right now. I'm talking, I mean, all the pixels. One of the visions I had showed me heaven. I got to see the center of the universe, heaven. My guide, I had a guide. A lot of people have a guide. So it might be someone you know. It might be a humanoid figure. Mine was a humanoid figure. And when I first saw him, he scared me, like terrified me. Because I thought he was a demon. I'd never seen a real demon before. I'm seeing this vision of this figure. And the way he moved was scary. And he was jacked and but he was black. And he was all black, except for he had two gold bracelets on. But the colors in your visions aren't like the colors we have. Like, this is gold, right? It's not like that. Because, like, right now, everything you see is light reflecting off of something. There's no light in your brain. What you're seeing is different. The colors were different. It was as if they were created from their own light. Just amazing thing to see in and of itself. But the visions, what it was showing me was a whole different story, right? So this figure, he showed me the center. No doubt in my mind, he showed me heaven. It was the most peaceful, beautiful thing I ever got to look at. And it was amazing. And I was like, wow. All said and done afterwards, freaking, and also it was as if I was in space looking at heaven. And it was amazing. And looking down and in, like I remember there was like this train that I could see from afar. It was tiny, but it was moving around in there. I don't know the significance of this train, right? Nothing in the Bible talks about there being trains in heaven, right? So anyway, the interesting thing is, so when I did my second dose, as soon as the vision started, the first thing I was like, where's my guide? Where's he at? I want to see this dude again, And the medicine basically said to me, like, you know where you're at. You've been here before. You don't need him. And like, it's not a voice. It's just a feeling. It's weird. It's a voice, but you hear it, but you feel it. I don't know. It's hard to describe. I mean, it's like coming from your soul. It's not coming from your brain. It's different, man. It's just a whole different level of consciousness, thought. I don't know. I wish I could explain it better. I really do. Even having done it twice, I don't have words to describe it. It's that type of amazing. It's incredible. So the second time, when I was in space, the stars had a weird orangish hue. So as my vision started on the second time, I could see the stars in their orangish hue. But my gaze came down, and it was like kind of a ridgeline and a hillside, and those same orange lights from heaven. It said, you've already been here. You don't need him. Dude, I wasn't in space looking at heaven. I was in heaven looking at space. And it was heavy. I was just like, oh my God. I mean, it was just amazing. Saw some other pretty amazing stuff the second time. The second time was kind of cool. I actually got to play with the visions a little bit. Like, I could manipulate them. Because when I began, it's not like some of the other psychedelics. And I'm speaking from third hand here because I haven't done the other psychedelics. A lot of people, like apparently like on shrooms or LSD, like you are completely disconnected from yourself. I mean, it's not like that. You are aware and conscious, even though you're subconscious or seeing visions. Like, if you got to use the bathroom, you get up, the vision's kind of stop, and you go use the bathroom. And you lay back down, put your mask back on, and they'll kick right back off again. It's weird. It's strange. You can't really move around. You're like, the best way I can describe it is how a Parkinson patient shakes.
Okay.
Like your whole body's a Parkinson patient on Ibogaine.
So it's like the feeling of when like you come back from you like choked out.
Not really. No.
You ever
Way
felt
more
that,
cuts
like
as
you
well.
get choked out,
Right.
you
You got
kinda
that
like-
tingly.
like-
Yeah. Like everything's
doing that.
restarting.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
rebooting. Yeah. Not like that. It's they have a word for it, but it's like you're shaky and you're uncoordinated. Right. You're like Bambi. Freaking, you barely walk. So it's like if you got to go potty, somebody will freaking
Walk you there. But you wake up. Oh,
Yeah. It's strange. But it's like the reset button, right? Like, it put the best thing it did for me was it really showed me what's important in my life and what is not. And man, I had it so backwards. I had it so backwards. It reminded me of my relationship with God, and it reminded me it was time to repair it. I'd been letting it slide for way too long. Not because I had anything against God or anything like that. Like I said, man, I've always been, I've never questioned my faith, nothing like that. I had just not read the Bible. I wasn't going to church. I had a preacher that when I was in Wilmington worked out at my gym, so I had a good relationship with him, and I would go to functions and stuff like that at his church and everything. And then when we moved out of town, I guess I thought I could do it without him. And I'll tell you, man, there's some talk out there about the psychedelics, about people saying things like, that's the gateway to hell, and like God wouldn't put that here. God's not giving us gateways to hell. It's a gateway to peace. And I've yet to talk to someone who's done one of those experiences who's like, yeah, man, I'm worshiping Satan now. It's like everybody is like, man, I've reconnected with God. I'm reading the Bible again. Like everybody. Because I don't know, man, the best way I can tell you is it created a connection with me with God. I mean, that's like I said, it showed me what was important in my life, and I was backwards. Yeah. So now, man, and that's the best way I can explain why I've kind of withdrawn and gone in a little isolationism. I had to take care of me and mine. Yeah. And provide a place for Melissa to be safe and secure, and bring God back into our lives.
It's incredible, man.
Incredible. That's the only way to describe that experience and the lasting effects.
Yeah. The fact that you haven't had headaches is unreal.
Not a single headache since the first dose of Ibogaine in October 2022, and I had a headache every single day since I got blowed up in 2009.
Wow.
My cognition is way better. So I took a bunch. So I did HBOT therapy as well. Yeah. And at the place we went, we did a bunch of cognition tests. I went back and retook those tests. So I had tests pre-Ibogaine and post-Ibogaine. I answered every single question correctly, which I did not do the first time, in a third of the time that I had done it the first time.
Wow.
All the reaction, like your reaction time tests, crushed it. It was like an 80% increase over my freaking performance on the test previous. So well over a third faster, and 100% on the test. I got nothing wrong. And it was math problems, nothing difficult, but I blew through them. I don't really even remember taking the test the first time, some 3 years earlier. So I don't know, man. I think this stuff is going to be an interesting thing in the future. There's no doubt. There's some amazing research going on with it. Congress has even funded some psychedelic research into psychedelics for veterans. Wow. We'll see, man. We'll see. Yeah. Let's face it, man. Modern Western medicine has done nothing for us in our injuries.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things on it. Mostly good, right? But it's funny. The mixed things that I've heard on that has never been from anybody that's done it. Which I know that's comical.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was always, and then to hear that from you, I'm just like, wow, that's like unreal. No headaches, and like have increased performance and ability to focus, and I mean, that's
It is, like I said, man, it's amazing. And of course, a lot of folks ask me, well, why'd you bat the second time? If the first time was so, incredible. Because I knew I still wasn't 100%. So there was that. I discussed it with the provider, a fellow named Trevor Millar, probably the most kind, understanding, empathetic human being I've ever interacted with in my life. Trevor Millar is an amazing human being. And you would think he's a psychedelic provider. They'd be some kind of hippie. He's not. He's actually a very conservative person. He's just Canadian, so it's hard to tell. No, if Trevor Millar,
He's very sorry.
Yeah, if Trevor Millar listens to this, like I think he knows how much I think of him and his whole crew. His partner Brianna, freaking just an amazing bunch of people who truly love us.
That's awesome.
When I went and walked in their facility, I could feel the love, and I don't know that I had felt love since my mom died. And they were strangers, people I'd never met before. And now there's some of the people I regard as some of the best people I've ever met.
That's rad.
Yeah, man,
So-
it's crazy stuff.
Man, I'm gonna ask you a favor. I want you to come back to DFW again soon to teach more shooting, so I can sign up. I'm gonna get a bunch of buddies signed up for it. I know this is a bold statement, but I would love to fill a class of yours with like my group. Right, just groups like the people that I know. Do like a rifle pistol course. It'd be rad.
have
But
some
when we
fun.
do that, in some long range shooting again. But when we do that, I'd love for us to like just do another episode. Out of respect for you, it's now 1:50 in the morning. You have an early flight. I know sleep's important to you, and one, I just want to thank
There's
you
a few
for
people and a few things I'll compromise.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. That's what I was going to ask is I wanted, a few people, obviously.
Very few.
Oh, I didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
I said there are a few people that I will compromise my sleep for.
Oh, gotcha.
Very few, and
I
you,
thought-
you guys are two of them.
Well,
I'm by proxy on that one, but I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely.
no,
Yeah.
thank you, Tony. This has been just incredible. But before I close it out, I know, you haven't been drinking for like 13, 14 years, which I think is incredible. The way you hold your life in regards to your health, it made me do some reflections today. Just hearing you talk about diet and exercise and the different things that
There are a
you've
few
done.
things I
and
just won't compromise. When I make a decision to do something, man, I am hard about it. And like my diet, like I said, man, I don't want to be old and broken. My dad, he had Parkinson's disease, man, and you're talking about one strong, bad dude, man. And he deteriorated into a wheelchair. Actually, his May 30th, freaking 3 years ago. I don't go out like that. I want to be healthy, man. I don't want Melissa to have to, wipe my butt. I don't want Melissa to become a nurse.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy. I don't know. I want my last days. I don't know. Go out doing something fun.
awesome.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want that for her. That's why I'm so anal about the way I eat, the way I live, the no alcohol, right? Like, yeah, man, the way it's the way I protect my sleep. Of course, that goes back to when after I got blown up, man, I didn't sleep for 63 days. I had 2 hours of sleep. I was eating Ambien, CR, and Lunesta. If I got 3 hours of sleep, that was a lot. I was losing my mind. So, like, I'm weird protective about my sleep now. I'm like, I want 7 to 8 hours, and I'm going to go to bed at the exact same time. And if you get in my way, freaking, but no.
Yeah. Well, real quick, any final, I'm going to read some stuff and then I'd like to hear some final closing thoughts from you, but obviously you've talked about Melissa a little bit. She's an amazing woman.
What's that thing about outpunting your coverage?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, out kicking your coverage. Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Man. Yeah, I still to this day, man, sometimes I look at her and I'm like, what in the world is she doing with me? She's literally such a high value person that she could have had anyone on this planet that she wanted, right? Including me. Why me? Because I'm better around her. I quit drinking because of her, not for her, but because of her. I was at least smart enough to recognize that my alcoholism would have never cut it for her. Not to mention, you make bad decisions. I've dabbled with a lot of, other recreational drugs growing up and stuff, man. But, man, my true addiction was really, pretty ladies. It always was, and I knew that if I kept drinking, I go out with my buddies, man, I could easily have made a stupid mistake and ruin that relationship. And, no, I knew she was worth it, even back then, before I even knew her that well. I knew. So I'm blessed. Like, she probably saved my life. My life would be so different without her. Who knows? I don't even know that I'd be still alive.
Well, another little movement from God bringing her into your life, and everything that you just said, like, that's what men do, right?
Yeah.
Hey, if you're able to, like, casually drink, okay, cool. I don't judge. I'm not going to say, but like what Tony just said was an honest self-reflection and said, hey, I don't want to put myself in a position that there's even the possibility of something stupid happening.
Right.
It's just not worth it.
No, I'm gonna avoid that. And also, man, on the health side, they're finally admitting that, like, it's coming out. You can Google it now, that alcohol is the number one carcinogen on this planet.
Yeah, I mean,
second is sugar. I've seen my mom die of cancer, freaking my uncle, freaking one uncle, diabetes. Man, I see what eating crappy, freaking, even on, everything in moderation, right? To me, that term is what mediocre performing people say to sell themselves on mediocre behaviors, right? For me, it's always, it's everything or nothing. So, like, for me, it's, what's the point of having a beer, right? Like, I don't see the point in that. I might as well, if I'm going to have one beer, if I'm going to get the poison in me, let's get it on. Like, what's the point? Unsweet tea is, freaking tastes just as good as a beer to me, like, they are both, but one doesn't kill me.
yeah.
One doesn't make me act stupid. One doesn't make me feel like crap the next day. Man, I got life to live, man. Freaking, I don't want to live life freaking drunk or buzzed or, man, life is awesome.
Yes, it is.
There's so many cool things to do out here.
Yeah.
So many cool people to talk to and meet.
Yeah.
Right? Like, dude, why would I impair that? And when I talk to people about that, that's how I explain it. I'm not like, hey, man, you should quit drinking because alcohol's bad. Like, no, man. Dude, the lens you get to see life with, not on alcohol.
Yeah.
It's so much better.
I agree, my man. Well, thank you. All right, so hey, next Tuesday, June 11th, when you're listening to this, we're going to be doing a full day Echelon Front workshop, leadership workshop here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Still open for individual ticket sales. You can come solo, small team, large team. We've had a couple companies that are now buying, larger groups of tickets for their teams, which has been awesome. It is certified for our law enforcement, thanks to Flower Mound PD hosting that cert. So it's TCOL certified. So our law enforcement officers will get, a full day worth of credit towards their professional leadership development. So that's going to be awesome. Anywhere we have the show notes, you guys can get signed up there. I want to thank all the support that you guys give us for this podcast, for listening, sharing, subscribing, commenting. That's huge. Those of you, we know there's a lot of you that listen to it on YouTube, in addition, in the background, just so that you can help, just us build that community, because as the community grows, we get more people that are exposed to stories like Tony shared today. And, what's going to be awesome is it may not happen immediately, but whether it's next week or next year, somebody's going to say, hey, you know what? I'm done drinking. And somebody's going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to make God a priority in my life again. And somebody's going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to fully commit to being in better shape so I can be a better human. It's going to happen. It's going to happen because of guys like Tony that come on this podcast and share these stories. And for those of you that are sharing these episodes and tagging us and doing all the cool things that you guys do on social media, thank you. Follow us on social media. I'm at JP Dinnell. That's JPDINNELL. Lucas is at Lucas Pinkard, LUCASPINCKARD. And then Tony is at Tony_ COWDEN _ and then also we have Capable Inc. That's your training company. So at Capable Inc. Capable _Inc. That's CAPABLE _ Inc. And then also we want to make sure that you guys are also following. Go to the reasonoutdoors.org. Check that out. Show some support to Tony and that incredible organization that you guys started, man. If you're not following Echelon Front, make sure you're following Echelon Front. Go to echelonfront.com, click on events, see all the stuff that we have coming up. If you have any questions, hit me up. Would love to help. Just point you in the right direction, whether it's an LDAP, an FTX, coming to the council, coming to the muster, corporate FTX for your company, whatever your leadership issues are at your company. We would love to talk with you. We can help solve those problems. We solve problems through leadership. Leadership is the solution to anything and everything that you have going on in your life. When Tony was by the house, I was had a couple books. I gave him a copy of Jocko's Leadership Strategy and Tactics, and I was like, what's awesome is when you kind of scroll through this, it's going to be a reflection of all the stuff that you've done for the last 20 plus years in the military, because good leaders make a difference.
I mean, the military's leadership model is still tried and true.
Yes.
Our planning models, the operations order,
Yes.
all that stuff.
It works.
When you show the 5-paragraph op order to corporate people, it blows their minds. Like, this is awesome. And it was created in the 1930s.
That's amazing. Check out Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA on Instagram. It's a ministry I'm a part of with Isaac, Stephen, Josh. We have a podcast called Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. Comes out once a week, every week. Events that we're doing about every 4 to 6 weeks, different gyms. We give a free seminar. Someone shares their testimony, and then open mat for some awesome training. Also a partner in the Texas beef company called Little Cattle Co.
Get that beef.
Yeah, dog. My best friend Stephen Little started that company back in 2017. My wife and I partnered with them last year. A website is littlecattle.co, so it's our company name just as a website. We can deliver anywhere in the lower 48, send boxes of beef to friends, family, customers. You want to send a special gift to a customer or show appreciation or have that. We also just launched our beef tallow skincare product line that we have, which is awesome. We have the body butter, the tallow, and the lip balm. So check that out. The feedback that we've been getting from people that have been using the body butter, the beef tallow, and the lip balm is insane. I don't wear sunscreen anymore because I would always get burnt. And I was like, well, why am I putting chemicals on my body and I'm still getting burnt? Like, this is stupid. So I get burnt and I peel. Well, the last couple of weeks since we have our own the beef tallow skincare product, I just put that on at the end of the day before I go to bed, and I'm just like put it on my face, my neck, my ears, my wherever it's sunburnt. Next day it's good to go. No peeling, no but it's been awesome. And so stoked that we have that. Also, other company I'm part of, On the Path Printing, Josh Strasberg and I started that company. We are good to go. Hit us up on Instagram. We are starting to actually crank out orders for a few charities. So we got you covered, dog. We'd love to help you out. I mean, that was the intent behind On the Path, is to be able to find charities and organizations and businesses that we want to be a part of and help them get good apparel cheaper than they can get it anywhere else to help those charities and foundations grow and expand and everything. And then obviously we have businesses we'll work with that we'll make our money from. It's a side thing. We just want to be able to help and bless people, and like God's blessings already. I mean, we have people that are like, hey, when are you up? We want to order. And they told me the amount of shirts. I'm like, yeah, totally. And I'm like, there's no way we can do that. I mean, we're talking, there's one person, they do over 100,000 shirts a year. They want to run through us once we're capable.
Wow.
I mean, that's unreal. I mean, so anyways, the intent was to help charities and foundations like yours, which is.
And let's face it, man, there's just something righteous and awesome about helping people.
Yes, I agree. So, also Bruiser Arms, check out Bruiser Arms, company that Leif, Jocko, and I started. And it's an awesome company that Leif and Jocko and I have been talking about for a long time. We're going to start putting out some content online, different gear, which I can't wait to have some of Tony's input on gear and just awesome training that I'm going to steal Tony to come freaking show us his magic ways on the range. Anyway, so make sure you're following us on Instagram. Also, thanks as always to Origin and Jocko Fuel for all the support that they give. Anything that I'm a part of, it's been unreal. It was, awesome to see what Pete and Amanda Roberts did, cutting down trees on their property in Maine to build a factory to bring manufacturing back to America, doing what people said they weren't going to be able to do. And that's why I love the stories that Tony shared, like just doing stuff that, he shouldn't have been able to do. And people told him that he shouldn't have done, which we didn't even talk about a lot of those stories, which we will. It's just, I love people pursuing the American dream and doing it for the right reasons. Like you just said, helping people. That's what Origin does. They help people. They're bringing jobs back to America. All their stuff is 100% American-made products, 100% just everything. Literally everything about it is 100% American-made. So go check out originusa.com. Go to jockofuel.com. Get your supplements, clean energy drinks, all the awesome stuff that's out there. But before I close it out, Tony, again, thank you for your service, everything that you've done for our nation, everything that you currently do for our nation, just your pursuit of perfection and no compromise is admirable. It's honorable. And I'm glad to call you friend. I'm glad that my family knows you, and I'm glad that you're able to share your stories, because the amount of takeaways that I have is incredible. And I know our listeners are going to feel the same. So I appreciate it, my man. What closing thoughts do you have for us?
And it's an honor for you to invite me on here. I don't, there's something about, that birds of a feather thing. Like, we worked together briefly and they've been good buds ever since.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we just hit it off, and that's what it's about, man. It's just freaking, like you said, helping each other, linking up with each other, supporting each other, right? Like, at least I would like to hope that that, like, you can pick up the phone and call me anytime, you know what I mean? And vice versa, that kind of stuff, so for you to, again, trust me with teaching your son, and to spend a cool weekend, for you to get to spend a cool weekend with your son while something that I'm doing, and I get to be part of that and witness that. And that's an honor, man.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And it's a great responsibility. I enjoyed the heck out of it. My very short interaction with Miss Amanda and the twins, those two little firecrackers. I was like, oh man, you're gonna have your hands full. Those two
Yes.
are gonna, yeah, man.
They're gonna do awesome things. Yeah.
Amazing, man. Just cool stuff. I appreciate you having me on. I look forward to being back soon and
Let's go.
doing some shooting and sitting down and chat
Yeah,
about
man.
it again.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this episode has impacted you the same way that I know it impacted Lucas and I. And I hope that it's a reminder for you to go out and do the work that's needed and to never settle. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 37.